Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Aurora. It's January 1st, 2025. Hooray! I can finally say it's the 2025 semester without having to assure you that I know what day it is on the calendar. It's the beautiful first day of the new year. I'm very excited to be continuing the semester that we actually started several weeks ago. So we're absolutely official now, and I kind of changed and rearranged my presentation of the curriculum right now. In this moment, so that way you didn't have to wait until the middle of the semester in several months to be able to get the really, I call it meat and potatoes, or most salient aspects of what I am sharing here about lasagna, because we're in this moment of spiritual urgency and inner unfoldments that you might need this information right now. I didn't want anybody who's new to have to wade through the entire semester before they got the important stuff. And for those of you who have already been in my class, it's just a reaffirmation and a reminder of the things that you've already heard and been exposed to about what is the importance or significance of the flying rainbow lasagna, and how does this relate to our present, like, individual and planetary journey of consciousness and really our whole entire collective. Let me also make sure that I'm responsive to the chat. Thank you. Good. So, okay, and then sometimes I don't look at the chat because sometimes I'm in my flow, but I will try to be responding to everybody's questions. Apologies that I sent out the invite link to this class today very, very late this morning. Not because I was party animal on New Year's Eve last night, but because I fell asleep at 10:30 p.m. before I even sent out my emails. So thank you for understanding on that, and I will include the notes in the archive that I'm sending out later today. This class is technically level 1, lesson 7. The Rainbow Journey. It's one of my favorite classes to teach about. There's deep, profound spiritual truth that is applicable to your journey and your life, no matter what is going on. And also I'll be able to tailor it to be relevant to some of our more ongoing, planetary difficulties. All right. So this is going to be all about the necessity of establishing the love rapport, which is not just baby animals holding hands or like a cute fuzzy feeling, that type of love that I jokingly call wov. And it's okay to wov your cats and dogs and other cute things in your life, but I'm talking about something that is really a tone of unconditional love that is the basis and the foundation of currency in our world. It's not actually the dollar or petroleum or gold or something like that. The foundational currency in the larger cosmic infrastructure is love, and love is a tone of reciprocity. It is the antithesis of exploitation. It means an equal giving and receiving. And in order to have this shape be a stable shape, I know it must always annoy you to see that. Sorry, my little model broke over here. But in order for this shape to have coherence and to stick together as a standing wave, this place here is where energy emanates from, but energy must also return to this place. This place here is singularity. The epicenter of it is infinity, and it is the epicenter of this energy form, and is the epicenter of reality, time, space, consciousness, the origins of your journey, and also the inevitable destination of your journey. And when I say your journey, when I talk to you, I'm speaking to you, this beautiful audience of my community here, of the positive refinement of consciousness that is meant to return back to the source. So in this refinery of consciousness, not everything goes back to the source. That's an important thing because it is spiritually reductionist, simplistic, and erroneous to assert that everything comes from here and everything returns to here. It is truthful to say that almost everything comes from here and that many things return to here. So I'm using my language very carefully. How about the things that are non-things, the no things or nothings, the things that should not exist, or the aberrances or the impossibilities? Not a good impossibility like me that follows cosmic law, but the things that are impossible or cannot come into existence or have no coherence of form because they are shaped incorrectly or have foundation flaws. Do they come from here? And the answer is a provisional yes, but only in the sense that up until this point there has been some stuff here at the epicenter, at singularity, that is not meant to be there. And in this semester, I've already given you the analogy of a virus at a nucleus of a cell. Now, I recognize that in your culture right now, there's an ongoing critical discussion that needs to be had about the validity of viruses, whether they've ever been isolated in a lab, whether they've been seen with eyeballs or microscopes, or what they look like, or whether they are fabrications, or whether they are used as behavioral control mechanisms. It's an important conversation to have, so have the conversation, but please know that I'm using the concept of viruses as an analogy. If we look at your cellular structure as being an allegory for divinity, where you have the outer cell membrane as being physicality, the world that we see around us of matter and experience, and then the nucleus at the center of each of your somatic cells as being the world of abstract potential, your DNA and your divine connection, and also the source, your connection to source, quite literally. Can there be something in your nucleus of your DNA that isn't supposed to be there? Because, of course, you emanate reality, the external aspect of your cell, the physicality structure in the cytoplasm, from your DNA. And is it proper to say, everything that's in my nucleus is there for a reason, and it's saying something that needs to be said, and therefore I shall have zero critical thinking skills about what is in my nucleus. I'm just going to listen to it verbatim, and allow that to be expressed into physical reality? Or, in your experience, has it been possible for there to be some pollution or error introduced into the nuclei that would then make that a flawed substrate from which reality is emanated? And I hope that you're recognizing it's number two. That is what's truthful. What's truthful is that in your physical world, your physical body has had to learn how to have an immune system, not only against microbes and bacteria and single-celled animals that are either wrong or in the wrong place, and also against fungal infections and mycoplasmas and weird mishmashes and chimeras, but also against genetic mutilation. Your body has had to learn what is something that is an invader into your nucleus or into your DNA, recognize when it is in error and get it the F out of there, because if you don't, that is when you die. And I've also talked to you about this lower quadrant here, this time vortex representing the probability structure of your life, and how humanity starts out being born at the edges of this probability structure, and some of your timelines there are incredibly short. Like you are born and you die within moments or hours of your emergence from your mother's womb. And why does that happen? Sometimes the nurse drops you on your head, or some terrible accident, whatever, a fire burns down the hospital that you're living in, but most often it is through microbial assault. That the initial lessons that you learn in coming here into a body are not cognitive lessons, they are immune system lessons. I want to say microbial lessons. Lessons about how not to allow invaders into your tiny infant form. In that level of your consciousness, you are not yet capable of comprehending your surroundings or speaking or communicating with other people. You don't yet have the organizational aspects of your neurology. You've just been squeezed through a tube. You have not organized your brain after that experience. So this is not about your intellect or your rationalism or even your ego sense of self. When we talk about boundaries and maintaining your sense of self versus the world as an individual. Like when you're a tiny baby, you've just come here, you don't even have an established sense of self. The primary lessons that you learn are lessons of how to stay alive in the world, specifically regarding microbes. For your body to learn, if those microbes come inside of me, I'll start again because my words didn't come out correctly. If those microbes come inside of me, says the little baby, and if I don't do something about it right now, that's going to proliferate, turn into a body-wide infection, and it's going to kill me. It's the beginning of an internal cellular decision to say, hey, get out of me. You're not supposed to be here. This is me, and you are not me, and you're not supposed to be here. So this all relates to, those are, again, the primary lessons that you learn in infancy just to have a body and live more than a few hours in the world. How about this? How about the primary infancy of God? How about divine consciousness? Does divine consciousness have to learn? Some stuff is me, some stuff is not me. The answer is yes. Does divine consciousness have to learn? Maybe I cannot simply emanate everything that is at the source by saying in a blanket structure, everything that's here is me, everything that's here is supposed to be here, I'll just emanate 100% of everything. Correct. The source is, of course, consciousness itself. It is definitely sentient and self-aware, and it must make editorial decisions. It must make selective curatorial choices about what is emanated into the world as opposed to what remains as a pure potential, as opposed to what remains as a potential that will and never shall be emanated into the world. The subset of all that does not exist is within all that exists, and it is larger than the set of all that exists. I will say that again because I know that that's math talk. The overarching set of totality, matter, energy, and everythingness is all that exists. And within that, there is a subset, a smaller definition of that which does not exist. These are a series of invalid proposals that are non-viable, and they don't exist for a reason. And there's actually more numerous numbers of invalid proposals than there are of valid proposals. It's like saying there are 10 million wrong ways to put together the puzzle pieces of you. Many, many wrong ways that do not add up to life, and only maybe one or two very selective stories or narratives of reality where all the puzzle pieces fit together and make you like a biological structure that carries consciousness and moves through time, which we would call successful life. Very, very rare events, right? So this has to do with basic questions about what is God? What is divine intelligence? Where does reality originate from, and what is a viable timeline? There are very, very few viable timelines, just like there are very, very few conception and successful birth events for you and for your consciousness to emanate into the world. But there are many, many ways that things can go wrong. Many, many ways that things can get effed up, or many, many different ways to make the math wrong. So there is not only is this shape a refinery of consciousness in the sense of emanating out a series of characteristics, some of which are refined and come back to the original emanator or emanatrix, and some of which do not. But also selectivity in the emanator, emanatrix at the epicenter about whether everything is sent out in the first place. And this also responds to, or echoes and relates to what I talked about either one or two sharings ago in this semester about the sense of God being a field of pure potential, a generative field of pure potential that exists around each one of us as living, alive creatures and pieces of consciousness with observership. And that would place a seed or a motivator, a spark of consciousness into that field of pure potential. The seed is a world seed that grows forward. And so on January 1st, many people make New Year's resolutions, although maybe it's not the best time because usually it's like dark and cold and there's not a lot of energy in nature. So people are like, I'm going to resolve to exercise more. And then it's like, you open the door, it's like 70, whatever. It's very, very cold outside. I wanted to say, 70 degrees. That's what it is in California, which is not very cold in other places. But you open the door and it's frozen outside and you're like, maybe not the best day to start my health journey. Maybe that's better off in the springtime when it will be 70 degrees for you. So sorry about that minor weather mishap. But not the best time always to turn over a new leaf in the middle of the winter, because winter is usually Deadsville. And it's better to wait until there's a time when there is more energy to be able to do that. Every time you connect with God and you embody Godness in yourself, you are generating reality. And that happens multiple times in each minute. You're constantly connecting with God and making the Big Bang happen and generating matter with your mind and generating reality structures with your observership in partnership with God, who is also, spoiler alert, you. But God has a huge editorial position. Let's say you're distracted in the creation of your world seed and you're like, I want to create like beautiful, positive things for my life. and envision the best stuff happening, and then distraction, like whatever I sometimes say, like purple umbrellas, like something weird and random, and then back to my creation. And when you plant your world seed into the vibrating potential of the God force field, God is like, okay, let's start manifesting this stuff, all good. And then distraction, purple umbrellas, like, this is crap. Let's not manifest that. That was clearly an off moment. Let's return to the focus of the intention of what I'm here to manifest. Or I joke about the Ghostbusters movie, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, this one guy's epitome of his childhood fears. What if you're making your world seed and you're like, and I'm envisioning like the greatest stuff, and then, oh no, I hope I don't manifest the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, I hope I don't manifest my greatest fear. So as God is looking at this world seed, and it is beginning to proliferate and kind of gush forward and make this amazing, voluptuous experience, it's like, should I manifest your worst fear? No, that was not intentional. That gets edited out. You get it? Curatorial choices that are made by the sentience of God itself about whether those reality structures or potential should even come forward. So that is definitely happening in your rapport with God, and that is definitely happening as energy emerges from the epicenter here in these divine patterns. Not 100% of what is at the source is emanated. Curatorial decisions are made, and not 100% of it should or shall be emanated. Some of the stuff that is there is either erroneous, unintentional, or doo-doos, or like the equivalent of viruses, invaders. When I talk about viruses, we'll just say consciousness invaders, things that are technically impossibilities and that somehow are pathogenic and have found their way into the epicenter in an effort to get manifested. They ain't dumb. They are very intentional. These non-being creatures that are trying to somehow game or hack the system to be able to find an entryway into reality as incredibly flawed creatures. We don't want that. If you want to get into reality, you have to pass the audition. Whatever is going on in each one of your lives, you may not be perfect people, but at least you can look yourself in the mirror and say, at least I passed the audition. I'm here, I'm alive, I did something right because I got conceived of, gestated successfully, and born successfully, and I did not die of microbial infections in like the first 5 minutes after birth. And look at you, you're all probably older than 10 years old, probably older than 20 years old, you probably have lived for several decades quite consecutively and successfully, so you've been doing something right, so please count all of those as major triumphs in your journey through time, in being able to make it to this moment, and that also you are gaining more conscious control over how you move through time and how you perceive the context of time around you, because it's also really important in the things that I'm giving to you here. This shape and the basic truths of this shape are a direct allegory for what you're experiencing on a social emotional level. And that's mostly on this level here, but we have to, of course, add in, ding, I always go like a ballerina, ding, the very, very top, like the crown, like the most abstract and highest level of perception in your energy body at this moment. But on the anthropomorphic level, what you're doing is learning about the pathogenic structures that are around you. Just as this shape needs to learn that not everything at the source is meant to be emanated into reality, you are here in reality, and you look around at yourself in the five senses world of matter, and you're like, maybe not all of this stuff is supposed to be here. Maybe only some of it, and then we use some bunal, some but not all. Some of the stuff that is here is supposed to be here, but not all of the stuff. And once you have that thought is liberation. It is imprisonment to be forced to look around at this world that is a highly flawed proposal, and to somehow contort yourself into the acceptance of and celebration of characteristics or organisms or things or stuff that should not and shall not be here. They are errors. You're in a non-pristine system. That's the greatest information I can give you towards your personal and planetary liberation. This is not a perfect system. There is stuff here that's not supposed to be here. Once you have that thought, then you are liberated because you are able to make an honest assessment in your life, in your body, and in your environment, and in your dynamics about what are the things that are health giving, life affirming, that can help you to continue onward and keep on generating and moving through time and having a future and having a life, as opposed to the things that cause mortality events. And that's pretty much the filter, the distinguishing features of what you want to be here in the world. If something brings you closer to the membrane of death, if instead of it bringing you like upwards, straight back here to reconnect with the source, but instead brings you at an angle away from that epicenter that you are returning back to, then it is non-life affirming, non-life sustaining. It takes away from coherence. It causes dispersion or dilution of consciousness, and it is not something that you want to be there. And in a perfect, pristine system, there would be no distractions, no errors, and nothing that is taking you off of your path. And that's the system that I emanate from, which is why I can talk about these things. And I get so happy when I talk about it. You guys know it as ancient Atlantis, but it is a concurrent shell of reality. And as I say that, because I affirm that so much in class, now it's become normal for you to hear that. You're like, yep, Atlantis wasn't an ancient long time ago. It's actually a concurrent time that is simply through another layer of existence, and the challenges that we're facing there are directly in parallel to the challenges that we're facing here. And in that world, we are on the moment of planetary invasion, but haven't been invaded yet. And what is about to happen is a destruction of the perfect system where energy never goes awry. Everything that is coming out of the source is what's supposed to come out of the source. Everything assembles into reality in the perfect, beginning position here, and then everything travels back home to the destination with no wrong turns, with no destabilizations, no accidents, no injury, no disease. Not only that, no fear, no self-doubt, no discomfort, no suffering, and total love and total celebration the whole entire time. It's like a very, very high level of artistry. Imagine if you are a musician and you sit down at the piano and you play a very, very long concerto that is 45 minutes long, and you don't make one wrong note. It's everyone at the end of that would definitely stand up and clap, and they would say, good job, you played perfectly. Now what if that's your whole life? Sitting down at the piano is being born, and then playing all of these notes is every single critical decision-making node that you make as you move through time. And that includes every single cell-to-cell communication, metabolic choice about should I get oxygen? Should I utilize glucose? Should I release carbon dioxide? That's a great level of complexity. And you're playing that piano of yourself so perfectly as you move through time for however many years, hundreds or thousands of years, that at the end, when you ascend and move beyond the limitations of being slower than light, that you quote-unquote played a perfect concerto. That's so incredibly unlikely. It's so unlikely that you can barely even conceive of it happening, but that is what every single person did in ancient concurrent Atlantis. We all played perfect expressions of the music of who we are, in divine connection, never made any mistakes, never had, as I said, an accident or a disease or anything that would lead to a mortality event. Nothing brought us towards the membrane of death. Everything kept us on this path of pure ascendancy. And then we returned back to the source that emanated us. So that is how you're supposed to experience reality. You're presently in a world where there are many things that are not supposed to be in existence, and you could think of that as friction or debris or something that is preventing you from moving easily through the time field. And the debris is usually a frequency debris or an emotional residue. And the emotional residue, it does equate to trauma or undigested, usually negative experiences. Hardly ever are there boulders in our path that are like, boulders of pure joy, where it's like, there's this blockade of emotional energy, that's joyful energy that we have to move through. And no, it's hardly ever that. It's almost always some undigested trauma of, grief, loss, death, destruction, or something like that. So it's never good emotions. It's always crap emotions that are the grit or the boulders that are gumming up the works, getting into the gears of time, reality, and preventing us from moving forward in a completely frictionless, blissful experience. And it's actually essential for you as experiencers to know this. Not only does it help you in terms of a coping mechanism, but it is genuinely empowering as you are moving through your life experience and as you're learning about other people. You're like, maybe some of the stuff that's inside of me is not eternal stuff and has to be refined outward. Maybe some of the stuff in my environment is not eternal stuff and has to be refined outward. Maybe some of the other people, characteristics, or organisms who are here are not eternal stuff and are not even supposed to be here and are supposed to be refined out of existence. That's a profound concept. Please know that I am never asserting that you should get a guillotine or a machete or something like that. Be like, all right, everybody who's not supposed to be in existence, assemble in a line. Like, we would behead all of you. Like, I'm not proposing for you to do that. Drinking some of my wonderful juice today. This is soursop juice. But for you to know, for your own personal navigational needs, not everything can be redeemed or can be elevated and refined back to light speed and beyond. And that's a positive assessment. Of course, it is a huge artistic and aesthetic choice to make these distinguishments and say what are the nutrients and what is the non-nutritive or pathogenic stuff that we leave behind. But not 100% will make it to light speed. How do experts do star travel? We do not use a clank metal spaceship, right? Experts do star travel by going through the actual portal of the sun, by literally arranging the matter and energy of our bodies to be in perfect alignment with the overarching architecture of light. We become pure light, which is pure information in exactly the correct forms, and then we walk through an environment and a doorway and a portal of pure light, and basically anything that is not the eternal aspect of self that is in alignment with those patterns of pure light cannot come through the portal with you. And that's why I say, like, we travel light. You don't bring your carry-on bags. You cannot bring your emotional baggage. You travel light. And that means that you are at the essence of your being. So, for example, I love this dress. It's a great dress. It's great for while I'm here in this social milieu known as this culture. But this dress will not come with me through the sun. You do not wear clothing when you go through the sun. Yeah, I won't wear my earrings either. Nothing that is not your body part. You will only bring your body parts with you through the sun. You will only bring that matter that is defined as you, your living matter, and that matter over which you have control. I'm telepathic, so I hear your thoughts. You're like, well, what if I get telepathic control over the molecules of my dress and my earring? Can I bring it through the portal under those circumstances? And I'm like, technically, yes, we'll talk about it, but I want you to just go with the analogy. Your accessories and your external body coverings are like your ego. They serve a purpose in the moment here now. They keep you warm, and they can be decorative, and they can send different social signals, but they're not the true essence of your being, because the true essence of your being is even beyond your biology. So it's beyond having a dress that is made for a body that is shaped with 2 arms and 2 legs. Like, what if your eternal body has 8 to 12 legs, or differently shaped body? I'm just joking, but your dress would not fit on them. Your ego. What if your ego is a dress that is shaped for this time place, and your vagaries and characteristics are created or formed to be able to accommodate who you are when you're in this level of biological reality, but that's not a 100% translation into the characteristics that will support your energy as pure consciousness when you are in another context, another time place. So when you go through a solar portal, it's essential to be able to release that which is non-eternal. If it's my dress or my earrings, I'm like, I'm so happy and grateful that I had those for when they were relevant, but I released them. They're no longer relevant because I am now moving through this edifice of experience and into a new context where I will be redefined. So you joyously release that which has defined you up until this point so that you may move forward and be defined in a new and different way. That is liberation, and it is positive. And it is not loss, and it is not grief. So the grief and loss of death is a different level of emotional instability, are the words that come up, instability and desolation. Everybody here equates death and loss with something bad, and then when there's a loss that is a positive loss, like going through a solar portal and eject that which is not eternal and release that which is not eternal, that can be very joyous and very positive and appropriate. But of course, while I'm here in this world, I wear my clothing, I wear my accessories, I utilize my coffee cup, I have my oven mitts. I need these things. This is for life, right? But when you go through a solar portal, you're like, I can eject my oven mitts. I will not be, taking anything out of I will not be taking my cookie sheets out of the oven while I'm going through the sun, okay? So I'm not just stating what is intuitively obvious. In your world, not 100% of the matter and energy that is here is in its correct form and moving at the correct pace. Some of it's not in the right place, some of it's not moving at the right speed, some of it is not shaped in the right way. And that also includes some people. It's very challenging for you to look around without devolving into a sense of sociopathic, destructive violence to say, a lot of the organisms or people that are here or characteristics are technically not supposed to be here. But that truth is really at the essence of the creation of lasagna. This shape is made to make some stuff and unmake other stuff. And that is innate in the activity of what it is to lasagna. Lasagna is not simply a cool way to get a bunch of extra energy. Everybody in your world, not everybody, I'm doing hyperbole. Many people in your world are like, free energy, wait, I want to be like this, like, free energy, we want the free energy. Free, it's like one of the best words that anybody can use in sales and marketing, or 0 point energy. They're like, yep, we want it all, we want to take it all and give nothing back. And I'm telling you that is not a viable option. Like this whole sharing of what I'm talking about here is about how this shape, you can't see it in the light there, is a balance of giving and receiving. And that is what the love tone is. When you give out 10 units of energy, and then 10 units of energy flows or reflects back to you. This shape is about that editorial or curatorial choice, where you are energizing certain aspects of being or characteristics, people, organisms, organizations, thought structures, or ways of being, and de-energizing some of the same stuff. De-energizing matter. What would that look like to de-energize matter? Let's start on that. So matter is a bunch of atoms collected into a bunch of molecular structures through different chemical and molecular bonds. To de-energize matter means to not only take away the energy that makes matter a particular state, that would be either like a solid, a liquid, a gas, a plasma, or even below a solid, even denser and slower than a solid would be a Bose-Einstein condensate. So not only how molecules of matter kind of like, they're moving around and bouncing against each other. To de-energize matter means those molecules are no longer moving around. They are frozen, they are stuck, that's 0 degrees Kelvin. Movement is signified as heat in matter. So if matter has any amount of heat, it's because the molecules inside of its form are moving around a little bit. And they are creating friction amidst themselves, and the movement that they're doing is not a random movement, it is a dance, and it is its own form of communication and even topology as a form of writing the formfulness of shape, telling a story, which is also what lasagna is. But also to de-energize matter is really to remove the energy that causes molecules to create their bonds or affiliations that make the larger, greater levels of complexity in matter possible. So you will no longer have collections of atoms that create matter through their interrelationship, because it is energy that holds those atoms together, and you would no longer have movement amidst molecules. So it is unmaking of matter by the removal of energy. And then what you have when you fully remove energy from matter is a Bose-Einstein condensate. You're like, Aurora, this is sounding suspiciously like physics. Should I jump out the window? I'm like, don't jump out the window. Even though we will use the word Einstein and we will do quantum physics, don't jump out the window. It's going to be cool. All right, so Bose-Einstein condensate is a type of matter that is even more dense than solid matter. It is what happens when you take all of the energy away from a form of matter and it becomes completely motionless, completely frozen, is just about 0 degrees Kelvin or a tiny fraction above 0 degrees Kelvin, which is absolute zero. And the matter begins to act in a new way that signifies unity consciousness. Instead of the atoms appearing to be individuated and having their own patterns and vectors through space and time, they begin to act in a unified concert and to overlap as if they are all in the same place. A Bose-Einstein condensate is super dense. That means it's a lot of this stuff that has no energy overlapping on top of itself. Yes, we've talked about other aspects of superdensity in this class, one of which is the concept of the Big Bang before the Big Bang, a super dense, condensed form of the potential of matter that then expanded outward. But also I told you you're big banging all the time. Like, I know that doesn't sound very good, but you are exploding into being through observership, all this matter all the time, so you're constantly doing that. But also there is a supermassive black hole at the center of this galaxy. It is at the center of every galaxy, not the same black hole, but the concept of something that is dense enough and supermassive enough to create enough of a gravitational organizational force field to hold all of these other stars together. And those supermassive black holes are like tap, tap, tap the conductor. They are not dead, stupid things, and they're not like science describes them as like monsters of deep space, ready to eat stars and to destabilize your world. That is very, very wrong. They are good. They are positive. Because also the word black hole has the word black in it, signifying darkness and all these things. So humans are putting a lot of fearfulness around these objects. They are not fearful objects. They're very positive objects. And it's also not accidental that these fearfully portrayed objects represent the next chapter of a star's evolution beyond when it is in its emanatory phase. Its emanatory phase is what you would call alive. Stars have a lifespan, a beginning, a middle, and an end. But their end is not the end. It is the evolution into their next level of being, much like death. But I don't want you to calibrate towards the normality of death. But I do want you to know that stars have evolved. Black holes are not evil, because science describes them as like this scary thing that's going to draw in like a giant mouth that's going to eat the world, chomp, chomp, chomp. And it's like, no, what a black hole is the balance for the time in a star's life when it's spent emanating, sending stuff out, spewing out possibilities and probabilities. Our time possibilities come from the sun and from the stars. And you must also think about the sun and the stars as very analogous to the neurons in your brain, where each of your neurons has its own sentience. Like it's a cell. It's like, hi, I wake up in the morning. I'm a brain cell. I live in Aurora's brain. I'm doing my thing. I'm sending signals from over there through me over to there. And I'm connected on a giant neural network of Aurora's brain, right? But also, there is Aurora. There is the consciousness of the individuated neuron inside of my brain that says, I'm a neuron. And also it is self-aware and it is aware of the network that it's connected to. That is a larger metacognitive being that is named Aurora. Each star is like a neuron. It is a point of consciousness. It is a portal for light. It is an emanator of light. It bounces signals from over here through it to other places. And also, it is part of an overarching metacognitive identity structure. That is God. All right, that's it. And it's who you are, and it's who you become. So I always say spoiler alert, but when people do spoilers in a TV show, to me it doesn't ruin the TV show. Because even if they say, oh yeah, at the end of the show you find out that guy's actually a purple unicorn, then I'm still like, I want to watch more, because I'm like, that never seemed to be what was going to happen, and now you're telling me this. I become more curious. So many narratives have been given to you about how, like, you're a piece of doo-doo, you're a lowly sinner, you're nothing, and I'm making mean faces and trying to be cruel about it, but lots of people have told you that you're a piece of shit. You're going nowhere. You're doing nothing and you're going nowhere. And so if I tell you, like, hey, and a PS spoiler that you're actually God and you're running the whole place, you're like, what? That's how this ends? I now have to watch the entire series in order to find out how that can possibly be true. So hopefully I'm just giving you tidbits that are appetizers that bring up your desire to know more about how this can possibly be. Because you absolutely will be making the editorial choices about what is emanated into reality, what is self-state, what should be here, what should not be here, what belongs, what stabilizes the system, and what does not stabilize the system. And the things that destabilize the system are things that you presently can probably pinpoint through your human anthropomorphic experience, the things that are pathogenic. So there are characteristics that are pathogenic, and then there are people that are pathogenic. Like, these are unhealthy people that are the amalgamation of unhealthy characteristics that then go through the world creating unhealthy experiences. And sometimes their unhealthy experiences mean that maybe they invent a form of technology that hurts other people, or maybe they go around, whatever, with a machete chopping other people's heads off, or maybe they make a pollution, like the guy that invented glyphosate. He's like, I will invent a molecule that will pollute all the water. Everybody will die. Like, that is not a good characteristic for someone to do something like that. There are very many things that should not be invented. And smart inventors have an idea for something that shouldn't be invented, and they're like, that sounds like a terrible idea. I will not invent it. Like, you get to make choices, just like the generative force field of divine presence gets to make choices about what is emanated into reality. Just because an idea presents itself to you does not mean that you, as a physical embodiment person with, arms and legs and mobility and dexterity, you don't necessarily have to make it happen. You don't have to paint an ugly painting that comes into your mind. You don't have to make a bad equation that comes into your mind. You don't have to make a bad chemical that comes into your mind. You don't have to create these negative reality structures just because they are presented as potentials. And once again, to affirm, the subset of potentials of that which should not and shall not exist is larger than the set that contains it. You're like, that's not allowed. I'm like, this is the truth. I'm sorry. My shoulders go down. Sorry to ruin your day, January 1st, but that's the truth. All right, so what does it mean again? It means there's a lot of stuff in the world. That's good stuff that God has created, that you have generated, that you have sustained, that consciousness sustains, that we want to be here. But then there is a lot of stuff that has never been created into the world that is not good stuff. It is a series of terrible ideas that you should never think about or experience, and definitely never paint them, draw them, or make them happen into reality. And that's actually more numerous than the things that you should think about and paint and draw and embody and bring into reality. But those things that are nothings, that are non-being, actually exist as a subset within the group of things that should exist. All right? So these are not two things that are diametrically opposed, that have equality. They are in relationship, but the stronger partner in the relationship is that which exists. You and whom I address in this class are that which exists. You're the levels of consciousness and the parts of self that will make the return journey. You finish the marathon and get all the way back to the source. Or think about it like being a mountain climber. There was, I don't remember what his name was, famous guy who climbed Mount Everest. And he was like, getting to the mountain peak is really only half of the success. The other half of the success is getting down the mountain safely and returning back home. Please think about that. The monumental achievement of becoming embodied in matter is amazing. That is like summiting a mountain. Have gone through an enormous amount of difficulties and unlikelihoods to be here in this moment. But it is not the completion of the, amazingness and the journey that you're on. I do want to use that word journey. It's not the ultimate of what you are here to do. You are here to get to the top of the mountain, look around, be like, this is cool, I'm at the top of a mountain, and then go back to where you came from. That's the real success. So the rainbow journey, the curriculum that I'm teaching you right now, is about coming from the source, which is also pure white light. How perfect that in my room right now, like the sunlight is coming in through here and it just totally washes everything out. So I'm just going to point to that as pure white light, pure sunlight, the pure light of consciousness that comes from a neuron, but really from the mind of God through the network of stars and comes into our world. That pure white light that becomes matter, and we'll talk about Einstein and his proposal of the relationship of matter and energy, and then it re-accelerates back to being pure light and back to being that pure potential of consciousness, okay? In this shape, if you only ever had an emanation from the source, everything coming out, sending out, sending out, sending out, but never anything flowing back to the center, the shape would dissolve. It would not be a standing wave. It would not have the coherence to continue. This shape exists because it is a balance of energy being sent out and emanated into reality or into physicality, and then energy of physicality going back into the energy of pure potential. It is that dynamism and balance that sustains the fabric of reality, and that is also what real love is. So although babies holding hands, like baby animals holding hands and cute fuzzy kittens are very cute, we're not talking about mere affection and love. We're talking about a mathematical truthfulness of giving and receiving. And that is what sustains this shape. That is what sustains the fabric of reality. It's what sustains the fabric of the cosmos. So let's use the example of energy coming from the sun to you, your relationship with the sun, in order to exemplify what a true loving relationship is. The energy comes from the sun. It is in the form of pure white light. It is refracted through the layers of your being. Now it is time for picture pages. Have this all prepared for you. First of all, I'm going to do this. Now, this like this. Then this stuff can go away. I don't know, I want this to go away. And then this stuff can go away. Bye-bye. No. Bye-bye. No? Okay, just press a button. This. At least you can see something here. Good. Oh, you can see lots of things here. Okay? So, sorry, I got so wrapped up with trying to press buttons and figure things out. I hope I didn't lose my place. We're talking about the rapport of white light, which would be, let's say, a dot here where my cursor is, that then goes through all of these layers of your being. And it is subsequently with each layer slowed down and slightly dispersed. When we go white light, then it is violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. And red is the physicality structure. That's half of the journey. That's half of the rainbow journey. From the culmination of pure white light into these constituent elements or layers of being that are all moving successively at slightly lower rates, slightly slower rates, and are slightly more distorted. And so, to say this in another way, the white light has zero distortion. The violet light has a small amount of distortion, the smallest amount of distortion in your body. The indigo light has slightly more distortion. The turquoise, slightly more distortion. Green, slightly more. Yellow, slightly more distortion. Orange, slightly more distortion. And when we get to the level of physicality matter and physicality edifices, you are in the most distorted, most diluted level of reality. The level of reality that is furthest away from pure light and pure energy. It is called matter. But when I say that it's distorted or that it is diluted, it is not to have it be less valuable or less valued. It is just so that you understand this is the level of reality where you have the most things that is not pure. It is not purified. What you have here is not 100% reality. You have a percentage of reality, but then you have a percentage of non-being, or whatever we would call it, unreality, unstuff, stuff that does not actually have existence. That's very confusing for you as someone and characteristics who actually exist. You're my audience. I'm not talking to anyone whose journey ends in entropy. I'm only talking about, to you, the good guys, whose journey ends in energy. When you look around, some of the stuff that is around you is stuff that shouldn't exist. Some of the stuff that's around you is stuff that should go to entropy. And some of the stuff that should go to entropy are physical characteristics, like a tendency in human behavior. Let me just pause and drink some of my wonderful juice. Sometimes it's matter itself that should not be in existence, like a stuff and a thing that you're like, this thing shouldn't actually be here. Sometimes it's a piece of energy that either should not be in existence or should be someplace else. So both of those are either eop, that's energy out of place, eop, or moop, matter out of place. Both of those two things. And this does equate to sometimes people, organisms, or organizations. Beheading them is not really the answer. It is a time rectification event that unwrites them from the narrative of time. That is what you really want to be doing. So I do not advocate, as I keep on saying, for some kind of, whatever, guillotine, madness, mania, like there have been in human history. I'm advocating for you to begin the artistic process of flying rainbow lasagna, where in your own body you are energizing certain characteristics and de-energizing other characteristics. And this has a radiative effect throughout time. And the things that you de-energize have a collaborative and worldwide resonances, whatever. It's a characteristic. Let's say there's a characteristic to violate someone's boundaries. And if you have that characteristic inside of you and you're like, I want to turn down the volume on the tendency to violate, and you turn it down inside of you, but that tendency is tuned to and related to all of the other tendencies in all the other organisms who are here. And that means that you're affecting time-space and all the other organisms who contain that negative characteristic of the tendency to violate. Your ownership of your own container and selectivity or curatorial process in turning those tendencies off in you have a radiative effect on those around you. And that's positive. When you clean up your inside, you are affecting the outside. And I always say that too when people are busy moving. If you're ever moving house, just remember, I always say this, the inside reflects the outside. Your inner state is reflected in your outer state, and vice versa also. So of course, you're packing and moving, you're putting all of your important stuff into cardboard boxes. It is the same as transforming your life. You're moving your consciousness from one place to another place. The inside reflects the outside. So let's say when you change yourself on an inner genetic level, and you take away some bad music that's not supposed to be there and you turn it down, it is evidenced in your outer reality. You remove that characteristic internally, and it is reflected in the rapport of matter around you in external reality. Here, I wanted to show you this. You guys don't often get to see this image over here. This is it's actually a close-up of a much larger scratch board where you can see This is the area where I'm waving my cursor, where there's lots and lots of red bubbles. That represents the physical reality. And here, this represents another physical reality. And these two physical realities are actually bridged together through this rainbow bridge, this rainbow journey of all of these ephemeral levels of reality that come together here in the epicenter. The violet is the last octave, and then it comes together, and there should be a white dot at the center there. And then, of course, it goes back into here. This really helps you to see the proportion. There's a lot of red. There's a tiny amount of violet, and then the white dot would be so small you couldn't even see it. Proportionally, there's a lot of filler in physical reality. It's not just that some things here are distorted. There's a lot more of things. Things are going slower, matter is denser, and there's just a lot of stuff that is extras that's really not essential. So just know when you're walking around in the world, you are experiencing a world that is not essential. Some stuff here is extraneous, and you don't require it to be here. When you focus your refinery of experience in your own body, you remove that which is extraneous, and you return to that which is fully essential. And that is really what this rainbow journey is. I want to talk about what the rainbow journey is regarding light from the sun and your consciousness experience. As sunlight flows to us in our world, where does that light come from? So this is big, and this is part of my notes, and I'll make sure that I include my notes in the archive, because I did fall asleep in the middle of trying to get everything done last night. Where does light come from? It's like a mommy-daddy question. Mommy, daddy, where does light come from? Well, it comes from the light switch, right? It comes from the light bulb. No, light comes from the galactic center. Light actually comes from the center of this whole entire arrangement of stars that is like a big giant symphony that is looked over by the giant conductor. All right? So now let's say, doodle it, doodle it, doodle it. I have to ask my lovely assistant, pretend I'm a magician with a lovely assistant, for my magical scarf. My lovely assistant pulls out the magical scarf, and then here we have it to be able to share with you about the magical bending and folding of the fabric of space-time. So this is not just a rainbow, this is a space-time fabric over here. And when we talk about light flowing from the galactic center to, let's say, your sun in the sky, it is a non-linear journey. So let's say this over here is the galactic center and is the origins of consciousness, information, and organized intelligence. And then that intelligence, light, information is going to flow outward to another star. So let's say this is our star of the solar system over here. If it had to go across this whole entire straight line of the scarf that is kind of under my chin here, it would take a very, 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 very long time. It would take such a long time that it would be irrelevant by the time it reached us. It would take so many billions and billions and billions of years, I'm quoting Carl Sagan there, to go from here to here, from point A to point B, that by the time it reached point B, it would be an irrelevancy. Like, let's say the message is something like, hey, like, put your raincoat on, it's going to rain. And it takes like 10 million billion gazillion years. And then finally the message comes over here like, oh, you should have put on your raincoat because it was going to rain 10 billion gazillion years ago. It doesn't rain anymore. Like, whatever, the sky has transformed into solid diamond. I'm just joking, but whatever. Rain is no longer relevant. You don't have liquid water anymore. None of this is relevant anymore. Or let's think about this as neurology of a body. Let's say point A and point B. Let's say this is your brain and this is your big toe. And if the signal goes from your brain to your big toe and it takes like 100 years to reach your big toe, by the time the signal reaches your big toe, like the big toe is like, I'm dead now. Thank you for telling me that I needed to do something 100 years ago. My lifespan is over. I am gone. But it would have been nice to know. The galaxy is a body. And it would be a very, very unhealthy body if the signals from brain to big toe took a linear amount of time. They don't take a linear amount of time. They are instantaneous because point A and point B actually have no space between them. They are completely overlapping and they occupy the same place. The galactic center and the epicenter of the galaxy, that is the singularity there, is the same singularity at the center of the sun. And they overlap. Light flows through the singularity from the epicenter of the galaxy to the epicenter of the sun star in the sky, and it takes zero amount of time. And then that light enters into the red physicality world that we know as physical matter, and it does take some amount of time for it to flow in a line from the sun in the sky to Earth. It takes roughly 8 minutes to do that. But please know that that's not the only way that light can reach you from the sun in the sky. It can take the linear journey. So now let's do this. Here is the sun over here, and here is your eyeball over here. This line, 8 minutes. But this can also be folded as the fabric of space-time so that there is zero space, no space between yourself and the star. So that you and the star epicenter, singularity, and viewpoint 100% overlap and cohabitate in time, and you receive all of that light from the sun instantaneously. That is the culmination or the ultimate in your development of your consciousness that makes it possible to know about and utilize 0 point energy. But by the time you can do that, you will no longer be interested in making your light bulbs run for 3 cents cheaper. That will be considered like your Barbie dream house. When you're a little tiny kid, or your Matchbox cars, you're like, all I want for Christmas is a Barbie dream house. And then, you know, if you're like, get it like 100 years later or whatever, 50 years later, you're like, that's what I wanted when I was a kid. Like, this is no longer relevant. That's a toy, and I want something different now, okay? So humans in your world right now, I'm highly critical because in your infancy or, you know, youthful lack of development, humans are really, really into commodification and materialism and the practicality of profound spiritual truths. You're like, yeah, but can it make me get my energy, my electricity for 3 cents cheaper? You're like, yeah, spiritual liberation, but can it make my light bulb turn on in my room? And I'm like, you know, by the time you evolve your consciousness to the point of being able to embody and comprehend the truth of what 0 point is and what this energy is and what energy is in its abstract nature, you will have abrogated the necessity of wanting to have electric light bulbs or electric anythings. You will not need to use electricity for electric doodads. You will have a completely different and much more exalted experience of the world, and you will not need to light your path with optical light that is derived from electrical lights, as I keep on always pointing my little fill lamp over here that's next to my computer. So getting out of not only the materialistic mind state, transcending materialism, transcending commodification, transcending not only capitalism, but commercialism and competition. When you are a part of the world of pure light, you do not compete. You are 100% a part of the continuum of consciousness, and you collaborate with other aspects of yourself. So you're not like, me, I need everything for me, and I want to make sure I get it, even at the expense of you, because you is me. But you're not at that state yet. So don't do spiritual bypassing, which is what the reductionist and just easy sense of denial, when people are just like, it's all God, it's all me, it's all in the soup or in the crock pot together, soak it in. No. At this moment in your journey, you have to set strong boundaries against certain characteristics and send those non-life affirming characteristics to entropy. Energy going into those non-life affirming characteristics drains and destabilizes the entire system. And you've already had plenty of that for a very long amount of time that has brought you into this state of dishevelment that you presently find yourself in. So you can't, this analogy of like in a body, if the body simply followed the dictates of the virus or the invader that has come into the nucleus, and if it has created great levels of disease in the body. This is the body. The body's like, I don't know, I'm listening to the directives that come from the nucleus. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Why is there all of this, mucus and whatever phlegm and disgusting discharges happening in the body? Why am I not in a state of optimum health? I'm listening to the nucleus. And the answer is, maybe you shouldn't listen to everything that comes out of the nucleus. Maybe there's some stuff that the nucleus is saying that is wrong. Maybe you should exert a filter, a skepticism, a refinement on what is coming out of the nucleus and whether or not you want to employ that as a life blueprint to guide you and to guide your behaviors. Once you think that thought, there's liberation, because you're not imprisoned by the dictates of the nucleus, because the nucleus might be wrong. The nucleus might have some amount of partial truth and some amount of untruth or distortion or outright lies or non-life affirming erroneous information. Once you think those thoughts, then the whole entire experience unfolds. Those thoughts are the enzymes that unlock the experience. And they're often in religions and philosophies and different coping mechanisms in your world, the forbidden thoughts. So whenever you are feeling stuck, just simply go through a belief system and be like, well, okay, what are the sacred cows? What are the forbidden thoughts? What are the things that I'm not allowed to think? And then just think to yourself, well, what would happen if I think them? All right? You can apply this to your life. Like sometimes I give really good mentorship in terms of helping people guide their lives. But if you're feeling stuck in your life, just be like, what are the things that you're not allowed to think? It might be something like this. What if I divorced my husband, wife, or partner? That's a forbidden thought. How about this? What if I quit my job? What if I moved to another state, county, country? What if I changed my hairstyle radically, cut my hair or grew my hair? What if I stopped with my usual dietary habits and did a completely new dietary habit? Any of the things that you feel define you or that you are wedded to, the liberation is when you think, well, what if I didn't do that? What if I stopped doing that? And what if I actually did this instead? That is where you will find your liberation. So the imprisonment is the false assertion that everything here is God. The material realm. It's like, yep, this is an emanation and a creation of God. Everything here is God. That's the sacred cow. If you poke the sacred cow, you're like, what if not everything here is God? What if not everything here came from God? What if not everything that's here is supposed to be? Because that's one of those big spiritual and new age things. Like, it's all supposed to be, and what you're supposed to do is rearrange yourself and contort yourself to accept a very, twisted shaped reality. Be like, well, if it's shaped like that, I'm going to have to reshape me so that way I can accept that all this stuff is supposed to be here. There's a very, very old bad joke about a person who gets an ill-fitting suit and he kind of like makes himself go like this and makes himself go like this and makes himself go like this. So they're walking down the street and someone's like, that guy looks really, really weird. He says, yes, but the suit fits great, right? This is just a very old bad joke. Sorry to even bring it up, but that's the equivalent of what a lot of people are doing, contorting their mentality and their sense of righteousness in the world in order to accommodate that which should not be here and is really a mistake. And of course, you're coming at your experience from the uninformed and unilluminated viewpoint. So when you start to come from the higher self viewpoint, you can see the math very clearly, and you can see the blueprint of reality as it is supposed to be, and then all of the errors. And there's no inner conflict because you're like, oh yeah, well, this is how it's all supposed to be, and then this is how it is. And there's clearly two different levels of reality that you can compare and contrast, like how things are supposed to be and then how things actually are. And then compare and contrast in the overlays. Oh, there's a percentage of overlay, some but not all. Not all in divine perfection. Once you think that thought, it's a liberating thought, and then you can also think the liberating thought that in this world of evidenced non-divine perfection, I will take some responsibility in moving this world towards perfection, in contributing towards the refinement process or the perfecting of this world. And that is all, that's what your journey of consciousness is, your own body as a refinery, and the act of flying rainbow lasagna. So flying rainbow lasagna is not an instantaneous magic wand that is like, wave my magic wand, poof, the world is perfect. Like light switch on, okay, bye, see ya suckers, I'm on to my next assignment. Clearly it has not been that way, although I joke about how I thought my assignment would be over in 2003. But I've been here for over 20 years because it's an incremental journey of perfection, not an instantaneous light switch into a totality state. Why is that? Because reality is like one of these giant ocean-going vessels that you cannot make like a sharp 90-degree turn, be like, going like this, turn it like this. To turn the giant ocean-going vessel, they make incremental shifts, incremental shifts, incremental shifts, so that you don't sink the whole entire thing, all right? So reality is an enormous number of moving parts and interconnected organisms and causality relationships. And it's simply not practical to try to instantaneously change and shift and correct and rectify everything. It's necessary to do this as incremental shifts. And that's why I've been here for 20 years. Because it's not enough just to be like, okay, like I'm going to throw down one new idea, one new thought form or seed. And then be like, that will fix everything. Because it certainly improves things, but then some things get better, some things get destabilized as a result. Then you're like, well, okay, great. Now I have to address the things that got destabilized and continue to improve the things that are good. This is what you're experiencing, so please never be disappointed. It is a positive, ongoing artistic unfoldment that you are continually perfecting your creation as divinity. Instead of being like, how come this didn't come out perfect the first time? I'm very mad. To be like, wow, this is an imperfect emanation or an imperfect creation that has an enormous amount of innate potential. I will now do my incremental activities working on this consistently and incrementally in order to bring it forward into its optimum form. Same thing like with your body. I think you can probably relate to this more with having a physical body. Because also it's January 1st and many people make diet and fitness resolutions on January 1st. They're like, light switch on, I'm going to be totally healthy, my diet is perfect, I'm the exact ideal weight and body mass. It's like, you guys know that doesn't happen, right? Like you might make an inner resolve, but then you know that it takes actually consistent effort and disciplines over days, weeks, months, or years to achieve your goals of what you actually want to be. So today is the day that a person would like turn over a new leaf, make a resolution, begin efforts in the right direction, but then you actually have to sustain those efforts. Because why? Because your body is an alive creature. And if you say, I want to instantaneously be my ideal weight or my ideal muscle mass, your body is like, sorry, like I don't work that way. But you know how my body does work? By being like, wow, you're going to exercise every day, I'm going to respond to that. Wow, you're going to make good food choices every day, I'm going to respond to that. And what you do is you make like batting averages, overarching, many larger decisions that add up to that light switch moment that is the moment of health and optimum fitness. So in your planet, although I know that we would all like to have light switch on, a complete healing and rectification in the moment of like all the bad stuff goes bye-bye. All of the bad, naughty people go bye-bye. All of the evil ones and pathogenic mind structures and organisms and organizations just all instantaneously poof away. And that would be like our whole planet instantaneously becoming like the most slender, voluptuous form that it could possibly be. Like overnight. Like, well, like, what'd you do? Everything went bye-bye and you're looking great. In recognizing that the planet is an alive structure and that time is an alive structure. We have to be in total radical compassion and to be like, let's do this incrementally. Let us do consistent, disciplined efforts in the direction that we want to continually go in order to rectify this system, and then know that we will achieve that totality state, but that there might be many incremental moments in between now and then. Just, I want you to know that so that way you do not feel disheartened if you're not instantaneously there, even though I recognize that many people have a deep desire to end the suffering of living in a non-pristine system. So it's really recognized, but just please be comfortable inside of yourself knowing that it takes time and that you're being given the time that you need, not punished with this time. Some people think that they're in a form of purgatory here now. And they think like the longer that they're here, the worse the situation is. I'm like, no, you're not here to be punished, and this is not a purgatory where you are purging yourself of sins. This is a moment of rectification. And just as I laugh at myself that I thought that, why did I think my gig would be up in 2003? Because I thought it would simply be enough to introduce to humanity the concept of flying rainbow lasagna and like pass the baton, like, here, take it and run with it. I'm out of here. See you suckers. But it was not enough. What was needed was a lot more of direct, explicit description of why this shape is important and what it is and what it means to you in your life and how to apply it so that the seed would actually grow. So you have to plant the seed, and then you actually have to water it every day, and then you have to transfer it to a bigger container when it gets big. Then you have to give it the right fertilizers. Then you got to give it its foliar spray. This is me over 20 years. I'm like, I'm going to have to take care of this garden. I'm going to have to take care of this garden. And so that's what I've been doing. But it can be a very positive, non-choreful activity. It doesn't have to be like scrubbing the toilet. But sending things to entropy for me recently has very much been scrubbing the toilet, because those detractors from the primacy of what is it called? Pure knowledge, which is, I want to say epitome. It's a word that begins with E. Pure knowledge that is without interpretation, empirical knowledge. The distortions of empirical knowledge have become like giant piles of doo-doo that you can't just like daintily tiptoe around and kind of move on with your life and be happy about them. The giant doo-doos are like right in front of you. It's like a giant mountain of doo-doo. You can't get anywhere. You can't do anything unless you take care of this and resolve this. So that's why the past several years have been really about just like cosmic scrub brush, toilet scrubbing the doo-doos and getting them out of the way so that this blissful reality creation can move forward, can have no friction, and just a positive experience and a life-affirming experience of creating reality. We're getting there. So also please know we've been doing many, many incremental shifts for 20 years, up until this point, over 20 years, and that we're finally getting to the moment where you can have clear amounts of energy, let's say, flow through the garden hose, or flow through like the riverbed. Let's say we've been dredging the riverbed for the past 20 years, trying to get the boulders and dead animal carcasses and whatever's been there that's been blocking up the river of consciousness. And we finally got it clear. Then there will be a day when that's the day when the water actually finally flows through that edifice that we've created. So what have we been doing for the past 20 years? We have been clearing out the interstices. And the interstices are these membranes of death, changing sculptures here, the membranes between worlds, these interstices. Those are places that have been trauma collectors for the larger consciousness, not even just planetary of Earth, but larger consciousness of stuff that got stuck, that didn't have a place to go. And that's very, very important to know that, like I told you, not 100% of what is at the epicenter is supposed to be in existence. But where is it supposed to go? Is it supposed to get stuck over here? No, because why? Destabilizes. Like the washing machine. It's supposed to be spinning in a nice, perfect, harmonic way, and instead the sheets get all bunched up on one side, and then it goes ka-chunka chunka, ka-chunka chunka, ka-chunka chunka, destabilize, and it stops. And then you have to go, and you have to open up the lid, and you have to rearrange everything, and get it back into the centrifuge. You don't want to have those traumatic, stuck, unresolved consciousnesses forever stuck on the membrane of death, because that will be a forever destabilization of the entire formfulness that you're in of time. You want to send those consciousnesses to entropy. to a non-being state. And that non-being state is actually where they should come from, where they should stay, where they should never have gone anyplace. Like, non-being is very easy. On the plus side, you guys don't need this sales pitch, but to anything that's a non-being, that's a nothing, that might be experiencing this information somehow, non-being is very, very easy. You just unbe. There's no effort. There's no motivation. You don't need to have money. You don't need to have food. You don't need to have oxygen. You don't need to have energy. You don't need to get anything from anyone. You don't need to machinate or manipulate or do any of the things that we're used to, the putis on the membrane of death doing to try to get energy from us. None of that becomes relevant anymore. It is actually the easiest form of existence, the most paradisiacal form of existence that is non-existence for those things that non-exist. And in this sense, God or divinity has truly given to each organism exactly what you need to be sustained. That you have actually been given an infinite amount of energy, and that energy has been parasited and siphoned off. So now you have less than 100% of your energy, and you're like, wow, I'm feeling not so great because I don't have 100% of my energy. So maybe something stole 5% of your energy. That thing that stole 5% of your energy stole energy because it has zero energy, and it's unwilling to go to entropy. So it's like, I'll steal 5% of your energy so I can have at least 5% energy. And it's used to stealing and cajoling and quid pro quoing, and that's what demonic quid pro quo is. Different ways of getting access to your biological energy, your creative energy, your passions, even your DNA. Do my customary gesture, which is the only amount of communication I'm allowed to do sometimes, but you know what I'm talking about. And those things really are doing all of these unbelievable backbends and efforts to try to get energy off of you because they have no energy, but they feel like they need energy. That's the problem. It's like if you live in a world where money is used and you have zero money, then you are very poor. But if you live in a world where there's no money and money is not required, and you don't need any money, and you have zero money, then you're like having exactly what you need. So these things that are actually nothings, that don't exist, they unexist, do not need any amount of energy to sustain them because they are not sustained. They've been given no energy because they do not require energy. You guys have been given energy because you guys require energy, because you are supposed to exist. And the painfulness of this world that you're in right now is because there is an amalgamation. You're a blend in a blend of things that should exist and things that should not exist. That is what the refinery of existence is about. This particular teaching is called the Rainbow Journey because we're going to talk about how energy comes from the sun, which is the epicenter and the source right here, flows through all these different layers and levels of your being, and it slows down as it comes forward into all these different layers until it becomes matter. But that is not the end of the journey. Although that is considered the summit of the mountain and the peak of experience, and even being born and living for 5 minutes is a monumental success, you must then also raise that energy that has become slowed down and I want to say like puffed up, kind of diluted with a lot of extra junk that doesn't need to be there. You then have to speed up your matter, get rid of the extra junk, and focus back to being like a laser beam that can rejoin with that level of reality that you originally were emanated from. And that is the completion of your journey, but it's not the end of the journey. It's just one portion of the journey that is eternal, that keeps going onward. So we talk about the light that comes from the stars. I was already doing that before. Let's rejoin that thought. Light comes from the galactic center, across the fabric of space-time, but we pull those corners together so that there is no space, from the sun to you. And then where does light go? Like literally, a beam of sunlight comes from the sun, goes inside your eyeball, stimulates your retina, and then what? Materialistic science says, well, it becomes electrical stimulation in your neurology, and it goes to your brain and your optic centers, and it just kind of hangs out there. And I'm like, no, it has a journey back to the sun as a cognitive event. You don't just have nothing coming off of you. You have something coming off of you. And the something coming off of you is or are your thoughts. It's your mind. Your mind projects, or your consciousness projects the experience of reality back to the sun. And that's the complete biofeedback circuit. All of your matter comes from the sun and the stars. Your sense of self comes from the sun and the stars, or pure light, and your awareness and your sentience. And time possibilities and probabilities all come from the sun and the stars. And they come to you, but that is not the end of the journey. You then emanate that experience back to the sun. And I've told you my story about fried chicken many times. This is me eating a piece of fried chicken. I'm going to beam that experience back to the sun. And that way the sun and the stars and the galactic center get the message. They're like, this is the experience of Aurora in embodiment eating a piece of fried chicken. And it becomes like this amazing, miraculous experience. It sanctifies the mundane. Imagine being this giant galactic creature that's like, someone is eating fried chicken somewhere. This is the most amazing thing in the world. Like truly, if you were a non-embodied person at any level, even the simplest activity would be fascinating. Like an anthropologist, be like, wow, I'm from another world and I'm looking through a window and I'm seeing what people are doing there. And even something simple, like grinding corn to make flour, you're like, wow, how unusual. And to them, it is a mundane task. They're like, oh yeah, this is how we make our food, right? So for you to be experiencing your food prep or food creation or anything that you consider to be just something that you take for granted and not the most fascinating part of your day is worthwhile and fascinating to the non-embodied creators that are at a different level of reality. I hesitated to use those words. I wasn't sure if they were the right words, but the sun, the galactic center, and the world of pure light is fascinated by your simple activities, including like scrambling some eggs and then washing out the egg pan afterwards. It's like, oh, look at that. Scrubbers must be used. It's like, yes, this is what it is to be alive. But you guys take it for granted because it's become normal for you. The transmitting back of the experiences that are emitted in the form of pure potentials is the dynamic rapport that you have with the sun that equates to love. 10 units of energy are sent out to you in the form of time, possibilities, probabilities, pure energy, pure potentials, and then you send back 10 units of energy in the sense of, here's what I did with that time, here's what I experienced, here's how my body felt, here's how my mind felt, here was my cognitive event in the moment. And it's valuable for both participants. That's why it is love. It is never exploitive. I told you love is the tone of non-exploitation. It is reciprocity. Both sides are giving and receiving equal gifts. And that is a beautiful level of idealism. You hardly ever experience that in your present world, but please know that it exists and it is the goal that you wish to experience in your individuality, your relationships, and how you create your social and economic dynamics. And that now we can relate that to ongoing planetary ascension and changes in the fabric of your culture. You can't live in a culture anymore. It is not sustainable. That is exploitive. That is out of balance. You're used to that. And you're used to this sense of either like maybe an overreaching government is always taking something from you but not giving back to you. And you're like, yep, death and taxes, just getting taxed by the man, and that's just how life goes. Or maybe it's a relationship where the person that you're married to or in partnership with, like they're always getting more out of or friendship, they're taking more from you than they're giving to you. And you're like, yes, I'm always going to feel really drained when I'm around that person. It's not sustainable. And any of these things where it is an imbalanced relationship. So now let's talk about physics. Don't jump out the window. E equals mc squared. What does this mean? And I can write it all out for you. I'm just moving in case you couldn't tell it like super high speeds today. E is over here on this side of the equation, representing energy. Wait, let me just drink a little of my wonderful magical juice first. E, my face is the equal sign, mc squared. So we can just simplify that out. Mc squared over here is Mass times the speed of light squared. But we can just say mass. Energy is over here. Mass or matter is over here. And my face is the equal sign. This is like a seesaw or a balance. When one goes up and the other one goes down, what we're trying to do is figure out what we have to do to make them balance out. That's why you have the speed of light squared over here. You have an interrelationship in that equation that is the essence of duality. It has given a moment of liberation to humanity, but also has created a glass ceiling in the expectation that you can never transcend a certain amount of the energy that will be needed to re-experience the speed of light. It was a glass ceiling in the expectation that there's a limitation that you can never rise above, because according to that equation, it will take an infinite amount of energy to re-accelerate you as mass back to light speed, and that light speed is considered the ultimate fastness of speed, that you can't get faster than light. These are not truthful, but they are provisional truths for the present level of development that humanity is in. So now we actually need to rewind a little bit further before Einstein and go all the way back to Sir Isaac Newton. He was around in the 1600s. That is the time that is known as like the Enlightenment, or the beginning of the emergence from the Dark Ages and the Inquisition. The Inquisition was a religious foundation torture system that squashed not only individuality and spiritual truth, but squashed education, academic truth, and intellectual development. It was a time of superstition when people were wildly accusational, hysterical. What's the word? And hysteria is not the word, but they were manic. People were manic, and they accused one another of all sorts of infractions against the regime with no evidence. And then there were horrific tortures for the accused crimes. And again, the crimes had no evidence. Like things about like witchcraft, supernatural experiences, and other levels of, supposed demonic activity. That was what that was all about. Sir Isaac Newton had help for humanity. He was like, let's examine the world of five senses. Let's not talk about ghosts, witches, angels, or anything like that. Let's talk about the world that we can measure, like measure with a tape measure or measure on a scale. And let's start to create a series of proposals that accurately describe our world of the five senses, and figure out what are the rules that are the foundation for how matter behaves in the world. And his explorations are very beautiful. They form the basis of what your culture calls physics. Exploration of the physical world and a descriptive set of laws and formalities that are consistent. No matter where you live on the planet, there is gravity. No matter where you live on the planet, water is going to do certain things, and air is going to do certain things. And this helped to bring humanity out of the levels of supernatural indeterminacy, spiritualism, fabrication, fantasy, and things that were not very grounded into a very grounded reality. But it's a materialistic viewpoint. It's not the end of the journey. It's better than randomly accusing people of witchcraft and burning them at the stake, but it is not the end of the journey. So then now we fast forward in our time machine again, back to Einstein. Einstein gave humanity another rung on the ladder of your cognitive development and perception of the world, by saying that matter isn't just dead, stupid stuff. It's very reductionist to look at matter and be like, yep, it's just a bunch of dead, stupid stuff, and it doesn't respond to my consciousness or to my observership or to what happens when I look at it and interact with it in some way. It is the beginning of the description of the interactivity and the rapport that you as observer experiencer have with the world of matter. The truth is, you two are not separate. You are not separate from matter. when you experience the world, and this is also what happens in infancy and early childhood development, everybody goes through a level of experience where you figure out who is you and who is not you. It's the establishment of your boundaries as an individual. Little kids put everything in their mouth, literally. Like they're gonna bite their hand, like that's me, I feel that. Then they bite this, and they're like, I don't feel that. They bite their toy, they bite their toe, they're like, oh, I felt that. And they bite their crib, they're like, nope, I didn't feel that. And what they're doing is not just being silly and not just working on their microbiome, putting things in their mouth. They are developing a story of self versus not self. What is the stuff that I feel? What is the stuff that I don't feel? And that's a basic pragmatism that we calibrate to in moving through the world. And when you, just like with verbalism, you come here non-verbal, you become verbal, it is an encumbrance on your cognitive abilities, it's a straitjacket on your real thought processes. Eventually you find liberation through the meditation, which is the taking control of the mind and pressing pause on the mind, and you become not non-verbal but post-verbal, which is to re-access your true mind of non-verbal state. And in the same way, you come here as an infant of consciousness connected to everything, and you're like, I'm everything. Then you learn, well, some things I feel and some things I don't feel, so I'm not everything. I am me, and then a lot of stuff isn't me. Me versus not me, right? So the themes are coming forward here. But then, as you continue on your spiritual journey, and again, sorry if you hear beeping, it's because my thing beeps after a certain amount of time walking here. After you go on your spiritual journey for a little bit longer, you transcend the distinction that is made between me versus not me, and you return to the sense of you are a part of a continuum, you are a part of unity and totality consciousness, everything is you. But you can't skip these interim states. Like when you're a tiny child, first you learn to turn over, then you learn to crawl, then you learn to walk, then you learn to run. And they find that there are reading and learning deficits in children who simply skip some of these stages and might go directly to walking and running because they haven't learned the steps of how to learn. And of course, I'm a walk-in. I didn't experience any of these things in childhood and infancy. So a lot of this for me has been like an academic learning. I'm like, oh, like this is how people learn. But I had to learn how people learn so that I could be a teacher, so that I could teach things to you. I learned that it was essential not to skip steps, to just go directly to the end, show everyone the most complex painting. Be like, here's the truth of reality, complex painting. Because everyone would be like, how do I comprehend this? What is this? It was essential for me to, I want to say break down, but really to dissect complex, holistic consciousness presences and proposals into smaller, more manageable, bite-sized pieces that could then be presented to you for mastery. You master a small piece, master a small piece, master a small piece, and then put it all together, because that's how you learn a song. First, you're going to learn this little part over here. Then you're going to learn the chorus. Then you're going to learn this little part over here. Take it from the top. Let's put it all together, and that's how you get profound truth. But just jumping to the profound truth at the end can be overwhelming, and so I learned how you guys learn. Because when you're in the higher dimensional totality state, like you don't learn incrementally like that. You literally just learn everything all at once. And things are not presented in a linear state, but you're experiencing time in a non-linear state. So it is appropriate to experience that. Like when you're in the higher dimensional state, and you'll remember that I'm telling you this, and you see this shape, you will simply instantaneously know everything about this shape without having to have a 3-hour-long lecture about what this shape is. You will innately and intuitively perceive the truth of everything I've been telling you, from the epicenter here to the circulatory patterns to the return of energy to the epicenter. So it seems almost intuitively obvious as well that if this shape simply emanated, everything coming out and nothing ever went back in, that at a certain point there would be nothing in to come out. You have to have a balance of stuff coming out versus stuff going in order to sustain this shape. This shape is called a stationary wave. Like it has a balance to it. All right, so we're also talking about the balance between energy on one side of the equal sign and matter on the other side of the equal sign. But to return to that concept, Einstein gave you a new ladder, a new rung on the ladder, but also put a glass ceiling above you, because what he did was he put matter and energy in endless dualistic opposition. You're always going to have these two guys fighting against each other, matter versus energy. And what happens with Flying Rainbow Lasagna is the bringing together of matter and energy. This is why this is important for you on your spiritual journey right now. Not only recognizing that you are editing out and creating curatorial decisions about that which does not exist in the world, but that you are experiencing in your own body a fusion together of matter and energy in non-dualistic opposition, in beautiful complementary partnership. So in this equation, what happens if I take matter on this side and I bend it all around and I put it on this side of the scale, and my face is still the equal sign, and energy is on this side of the scale too? What's going to happen? My hands go through the floor, down to the core of the earth and beyond. It gets very, very heavy. It gets infinitely heavy, because that's everything. You have energy and you have matter, and you put everythingness together on one side of the equation. What balances that out? You guys are smart, and you've taken my class before. You know the answer. Infinity. Infinity. Matter plus energy over here equals infinity. Flying Rainbow Lasagna is matter plus energy. Over here, it's very heavy. I can't even hold it up, guys. Ow, my arm. Equals infinity. If we put infinity over here, then it balances out matter plus energy. That is the necessary integument that you need to transcend the limitations that Einstein's teachings brought to you. Those teachings were valuable because they included the concept of observership, which is that matter responds differently when you are observing it than when you are not observing it. There are many videos about this that you can look up that are called the double slit experiment. So I won't go through the whole explanation of it, but if you want to delve and self-educate, or just remind yourself of something cool and new that you already know, you can learn about the double slit experiment. But that was one of the foundations that have helped humans to understand that the world is responding to how you look at it. I have a great video that you can look up too. It's called Reality Creation and Burnt Cookies. I think it's from like 2017 or so. And this is also why I walk on eggshells and don't use certain words, because I don't want my channel to be taken down, because I have really beautiful gems like this one from 2017. So in my story about reality creation, I talk about your eyes and your observership and your perception of the world as being similar to ovens. That you are actually walking around in a sea of dough or uncooked cake batter. That is what the fifth dimension and higher is. Now you can sing that song about the fifth dimension if you want to. Let in your minds, sing it in your minds. Or those who are brave, it's got a lot of high notes, sing that song. But the fifth dimension is not 5D, as the world of spiritual attainment and New Age reductionist language is often describing it. All right? So just take all of the preconceptions and misconceptions that people have given you about what 5D is, and please set them aside. I'm not talking about a density in any way, or a ladder of operancy, or a spiritual elitism. I'm in 5D, and you are merely in 3D, you know. I'm much more attained than you. None of that. You guys are in the fifth dimension right now, as we presently speak. Here's what is happening. You are swimming around in a sea of uncollapsed waveforms. It is a sea of pure potential. These are frequencies and harmonically arranged circular, spherical, and sine wave structures that are part of a continuum of consciousness that is absolutely emanated but from the sun, but is really the evidence of larger stellar network, neurological network activity. They're potentials, time potentials. So the fifth dimension is like the bakery where the French bread of life is created. French bread is a long, skinny loaf. and you chop it up into these little pieces, and then whatever, you put a little piece of like ham and cheese on top of each piece, right? Like a little bruschetta. That is your life. One end of the bread is your birth, and the other end of the bread is your death, and it's shaped like a line. But that is the fourth dimension. The fifth dimension is not the shelf where you have many, many baguettes lined up next to each other, and I often use my hand and the fingers of my hand as an example of that. Multiple timelines like this is actually the fourth dimension. What you actually have with the fifth dimension is the potential, the raw dough of reality. The fifth dimension is the bakery room where they have flour and water and giant mixing containers to be able to make up the dough of reality. It is a force field of pure potential. And observership, as it is presented by the quantum scientists of the early 20th century, is the sense that your observership, your act of looking and perceiving, solidifies the waveforms of potential into realities that you can actually experience and, yes, sink your teeth into. This is what I talk about when I say that you are godding and giving birth to reality with God in every moment. Like Big Bang, Big Bang, Big Bang. Like, I'm just sitting in front of my computer. Like, what do you mean Big Bang? Like, you're making your computer. You're making your computer happen by sitting there and looking at it. You're making the chair happen by sitting in your chair. You are making the floor happen by standing upon the floor. You are making that sunlight happen by perceiving that sunlight. This is deep, deep, deep stuff. It is not for the intellectually weak of heart. It takes a lot of inner focus to be able to perceive the world on these levels and maintain your balance and your sanity and still be able to go through your day with these profound truths flowing through you at all times. So you're in the heavy lifting zone, all right? Like, put on one of those weightlifting belts so you don't strain yourself. This is the heavy lifting. The world is a sea of uncollapsed waveforms. You're actually not in a room. You're actually in a field of pure potentials. Even your body exists as a force field of pure potentials. It is your consciousness having an event of experiencer, an observational event of being the experiencer that creates what around you is interpreted as a room with four walls. Or maybe you're in a park and there's like grass, my dog is barking, whatever, grass on the ground or a blue sky up above you. These are things that you are creating out of the potentials of what has been given to you from the sun and the stars. The sun and the stars and the galactic center are the makers of the potential that you then bring forward through your observership into physical matter. So now the experience of physical matter is completely redefined. It's not something that was made a long, long time ago in a singular event known as the Big Bang, when everything went from a super condensed tiny pinpoint of everyhingness into the expansion, explosion of everything that's become the complexity that we know around us now. And now we're just kind of experiencing the, like weird gyrations of all of that initial expansion. We are really in a constant moment of creation, and then creation again, and then creation again, and then creation again. And this is what I'm talking about when I say that we have to do incremental shifts in our reality creation, that you don't just go 90 degrees with a giant ocean-going vessel. Reality is a giant ocean-going vessel on the oceans of consciousness, and what you need to do is shift incrementally, where you're like, okay, now I'm gonna emit reality and it looks like this, and now I'm gonna change it, and now I'm gonna emit reality and it looks like this. You make small changes over the course of a drawn-out period of time in order to achieve your goals. This is exactly how we do traditional oil painting. So now we're out of quantum physics class. Let's have fun in art class. You're like, oh, hooray, I love art class, all right? Okay, class, so now I'm the painter teacher. And I'm like, okay, let's begin a painting. Sit down at your easel or stand up at your easel. You got a white square or rectangle in front of you. It's the first thing we're going to do. Just do a little rough sketch with the charcoal, lay things in, do your basics of how you want to do your composition, everything like that. Okay, and now I want you to dilute some paint with either some linseed oil or some turpentine, and then I want you to just do some basic lights and darks. Just do a little bit. You can squint your eyes in order to be able to see where the basic lights and darks in your composition, and just put that layer in. Okay, now no, don't do anything more. Come back for class next week. Let your painting dry, and come back and put the next layer on it next week. And now, fast forward to next week. Hi, class. Great. Get your paintings out. I'm glad. Get yourself all set up. Now I want you to put out some colors on your palette. And now I want you to just in some very diluted glazes, just to start to lay in some colors. Where you see red, just put in some, diluted red. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just working in generalities. Diluted yellow over here, diluted blue over here. Okay, great. That's enough. You don't have to put the eyelashes on the, highlights on the eyes on the painting. You've done enough for today. Now you let it dry. Come back again in a week and then add another layer. And with each successive layer, you're working with glazes or transparent layers of the paint. You work from the general to the specific. You tighten up the composition, figure out where the edge is, like here's an edge, the edge of my neck versus my hair or the background over here. And you find ways to be able to start to add color and add detail. But it's not instantaneous. It's a process of many, many layers. And in that process, there is freedom, because you can change. Like maybe you're like, well, should the edge of my neck, should it be over here? Should it be over here? You're like, no, neither of those places is the right place. It's supposed to be right here. And so when you look at paintings, when I start to teach you this and here in art class, and then you go and you look at some paintings, you might see, you're like, well, wait, I think initially when they painted that area, the edge of the neck was all the way over here. And then they're like, no, that doesn't look like the right place at all. We got to bring it in. So we painted some dark color over it, dark color, until we got to this edge here. They were like, yep, that was exactly the right place where the neck needs to be. And that's the process of being an artist. You don't necessarily have to start out with a perfect drawing, a perfect underpainting, knowing exactly where everything is going to be in your painting. As you paint, you figure stuff out. It is not an intellectual proposal. You are on a journey to unlock your painting. And then you keep going on the journey, fine-tuning it and making it better and better, improving it until it looks like what you want it to look like. And then you can tell when it looks like, that looks like a person. I think I did a good job. And that's when you start to add on little details like the earring and the eyelashes and other things like that. But you cannot start with those details. This is exactly the same with changing and improving and emanating an ideal reality. You don't have to start off with your perfect blueprint where you know everything about how reality is supposed to be shaped. You can start off with a generalization. Lights versus darks, generalized composition, a generalized concept of what you want reality to be shaped like. And then you start to flesh it out. Every time you do your lasagna dance, which is a form of intentional, usage of your muscles of observership, you improve reality slightly. So I've been dancing as a flying rainbow lasagna since October 8th of 2001. This is a long time at this point. It's like, 24 years. My painting has many, many layers on it. And so this is also why in my dance and in my dance group, I teach everyone, you do a dance, which is another layer of the painting, and then you bring your hand vortexes together into a page break, pagination. And from that, that's first of all like a sealing in, and saying everything looks good up to that point. Let's just seal that in, like give it a little buffer zone, so that if something happens that compromises the next movement, it doesn't retroactively go back through all these layers that I've done and screw everything all up all the way back to the beginning of time. You make these little paginations and bubbles to protect what you've done. If you've ever worked with Photoshop, you know how you can lock a layer. You're like, I like that layer, it looks great. You press the button, it's locked. That means nothing's going to happen. So with oil paint, sometimes the paint is still pliable, and you can still go back in and scrape it away, or turpentine, or change it, or mush it. But sometimes that paint is dry, and it's like, it is what it is, and it's not moving. And you have to, if you want to save something, like you keep it protected. You want that paint to dry. You're like, this part of the painting looks great. Don't mess with that anymore. Boom, paginate, page break. But paginations are about partially creating these firewalls between moments, but they're also about the freedom to be able to then change your, like in music, you change a key, like you go from A to G, or change your tempo, or change some quality of the expression. And I say out of the culmination of those time structures, there's then the coming together and then the expansion, explosion of the next time structure. So instead of conceiving of one big bang that happened in an ancient time, and you're now living in the aftermath of that ancient time, what you're having is a big bang that makes a lot of stuff happen. And then all of that stuff you organize and bring it together, and comes the completion. But then out of that completion comes the next big bang that everything comes out of, and lots of cool and fun things happen, and then you bring it together into completion. And in every single one of these expansions and rearrangements, there is a refinement of reality. It keeps on getting more and more and more focused. Just like you're painting an art class, as you add more and more and more layers to it, the image comes forward. It gains more details, it gains more clarity, and it gains more precision and more perfection, okay? So in observership, in comprehending what is observership, you are taking the wildly chaotic and undefined aspects of the fifth dimension and higher. We haven't even talked about the higher dimensions, but the fifth dimension is really one of the most accessible in concepts of the pure waveform dimensions. Okay, it's not a material dimension, it's pure waveform, pure frequency. Taking the undefined chaotic potentials of that level of reality and turning it into a physical embodiment reality structure that is something that your five senses can participate in. And when you do that, it's not a perfect reality. It is necessary to refine that reality. So this is also what you do with sun gazing every day, because the sun is sending to you divine potentials, which you receive in dawn. And they come into your pineal gland, and they come into your spinal cord, and they come into your DNA, and then you go through the day having all sorts of experiences that came from the sun. And then at the end of the day is when you sun gaze and you send your experience back. You have your coffee meeting with your boss. So in the morning you wake up, you have your coffee meeting with your boss, and your boss is like, okay, here's what we're doing today. We're going to do this, 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 and this. And you're like, okay, got my assignments, see you later. And then you go off and you do your assignments. And at the end of the day, you have your coffee meeting with your boss, or your recap, where you're like, okay, status report. Here's what I did, and here's what I did, and this part came out great, and this part came out really crappy. And then that's how it went. And then the sun receives that feedback from you and is able to say, okay, so now I'm going to, as the sun, emit a refined and upgraded new blueprint to you. That's what happens. You get an incremental shift every day with the sun. And then in the morning, you receive your new light codes. Here's your coffee meeting. Here's your new assignments. Here's your new light codes. And you're like, okay, off I go. My new light codes and do new stuff. And then again, some stuff comes out great and some stuff comes out crappy, and you tell the sun all about it at the sunset, and the sun is like, oh, thank you so much for being such a good worker, and I'm very, very happy to receive your status report, and now I know what is going great and what needs to get fixed up. And this is the optimum way to generate reality. In our world that is the non-pristine world that we're coming out of, there has been no conversation between yourself and the sun. There's been no connection between you and your boss. And so you're like, you don't know what's your assignment. The sun is very disappointed and doesn't know why you're not doing your job. And then you die. And when you die, you give back, where's my hard drive? Well, do I have one around here? I don't have one easily available. Your hard drive, wait, here's. I have this, wait. I have one, they're just hidden back here. Okay, so this represents the accumulation of your whole entire life. You saved it on a hard drive. This actually represents like a year's worth of music to me. So I did all this cool stuff during my life, but I never sent it back to the sun. I just stored it on my hard drive because I didn't know how to stop my stupid verbalized mind and talk to the sun directly. And then I died. And I'm like, okay, sun, here's my life. Here's everything I did. And the sun plugs it in and is like, ding. Thank you so much. I'm really glad to have this information, but I wish you would have told me this 40 years ago because then you wouldn't have had to die. Because if you had told me this during the time that you were having the difficulties, I would have sent you new light codes and you could have changed and refined your experience so you didn't have to die. That is what we did in the time before death was invented. It wasn't that death couldn't happen. It was that it didn't happen because we all had such a strong rapport with the sun at all times that, let's say you start to go into a timeline that is non-optimum and is bringing you towards death and away from life, the sun will immediately send out light codes and correct you. The sun is like, oh, I just got, you're a good worker. I can see that you're about to go down the wrong road. Don't go down that road. Go over here instead. And you'd be like, okay, thank you, I'm a good worker. I'll take that information and go in the right direction now. And that made life very joyful. That was paradise. Imagine what it would be like. Not a horrible totalitarian government state. Not an AI taking over your mind with synthetic telepathy. Those are the distortion, non-intentional, pooped on versions of something that is very, very beautiful. That is this free will rapport that you have with the sun as your guide and then you as the experiencer. So free will is a big part of this. Free will is the foundational concept of the cosmos. You are here in free will. You have the opportunity to be just a giant, I want to say F-U-C-K up. You can be a sweat hog, an unrecalcitrant student. Be like, okay, I know you're telling me to do this, but I'm not going to listen. I don't want to listen to you. I got attitude, and I'm going to do what I want to do anyway. And then, smash into the membrane of death. That is what the Pooties did. Literally. The people that are on the membrane of death, or consciousness residues on the membrane of death, are there because they knew they were doing bad math. Bad math means creating technologies that are not life-affirming. And creating dynamics and time edifices that are going to destroy their planet, their bodies, their culture, their everything. And they did it anyway. They did it in a very self-destructive way. And then they ended up on the membrane of death. And then they've been making our lives hard because they have destabilized the entire washing machine. Ka-chunka, chunka, chunka. So liberation for us is liberation for those stuck consciousnesses. It doesn't just mean that it all gets swept under the cosmic carpet. It means that they must pay the price for their destabilization of the totality system. It's not just about their little narcissistic, me, I'll do what I want to do with my attitude and mess things up, messing it up for everyone. Messing it up for everyone. And when you do that, there's a huge price to pay. So, this larger overarching fabric, this rainbow scarf of reality, this is time-space, and it's alive, and it's what we all live in. And it's not okay for other people to screw up or poop in time-space, because that messes it up for the rest of us. When other organisms or people intentionally make wrong choices, they can destabilize time so much that it would be like, imagine there's a moth that eats away at this and then it gets big giant holes in it until at a certain point you just have tatters. You don't actually have a cohesive fabric that sticks together. And that is the real challenge that you're facing in your world right now. Not only the cognitive dissonance of stuff that doesn't exist, but that you're experiencing in existence. Stuff that came from the nucleus or from the source that's been emanated into or self-emanated into existence. But you didn't make it happen, but it's screwing up your life. And then that stuff that's in existence making bad self-destructive choices for itself that then destabilizes you and imperils your existence. When something imperils your existence, you are not obliged to sustain its existence. It's like saying if you work at a company and there's a bad worker there who's messing up the machinery so much that it's going to destroy the whole entire company. Like they're going to overload whatever, the factory lathe, and then the factory's going to blow up, and then you won't have a job either. When you see someone like that, who's a worker at the factory, and you see their machinery is getting into the red lines and it's about to overheat and explode and destroy the entire factory, you don't have to just sit by passively and be like, well, look, I think that guy's about to blow up the entire factory. Oh, well, I guess I'm out of a job. You are obliged and mandated to go over to that guy and say, you're not doing your job correctly. You're threatening the entire factory by you not doing your job. Get out of here. And also, I'm going to do your job. Because we got to take those things out of, like, the red line, like the dials are all up into the red, bring them back down into the green so that the entire thing doesn't blow up. This is, again, big stuff, and it requires a complete recalibration of your expectation of some external authority figure doing this. Because many people are trained to say, I see that factory worker is doing a bad job over there. Their machine is about to blow up. It does imperil me in my job here at the factory. I'll wait for the supervisor. Clearly the supervisor will fix everything. I will just stand by and do nothing, la la la. And that's kind of the sense of the Stockholm Syndrome, implanted genetics that say wait for a savior, and the externalization of deity or divinity. Deus ex machina means the hand of God reaches out. It's expecting an externalized God to suddenly reach down and be like, oh, this is the hand of God reaching down. I now reach down and fix everything. You get out of here. Machine gets fixed and you get a cupcake. And that is not an effective thing to do, because you can wait for the hand of God to come down. What if that doesn't happen? Then you will have factory explosion and you will not have a job anymore. So in this sharing here today, as I've described to you, your experience with God or coming into knowledge of God's self, and this is what ascension is, the externalization of the internal process, the observership that creates reality, and the levels of profound self-responsibility that happen from your recognition of that. You don't have to be deathly afraid, like, oh no, what if I paint the wrong thing? What if my mind goes astray? What if I do the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and everything will be bad? You don't have to be afraid of that, because again, if you make mistakes in reality, you can fix, heal, and rectify them. You must recognize your innate power, which you have always had, but you simply have not known about it, so you haven't had access to it. It's like a trust fund. When people have a trust fund, it's like they have the potential for great wealth, but they don't have access to it yet. And then at a certain point, they reach either the right age or whatever is the necessary levels of responsibility, and then their trust is given back to them. That is what humanity needs, to recognize that your creative potential is like your trust fund. You're incredibly wealthy, cosmic royalty. I speak to you, not to the stuff that is going to go to entropy, but the real you has all of this wealth in being able to imagine and to create and to make things happen in the world. And these creative potentials have not been fully accessed by you, and you've mostly been externalizing the sense of creativity to an externalized deity or something that intervenes and makes things happen. You have to supplicate yourself to. And this teaching, and of course many other things you're being encouraged towards, is all about the recognition and claiming ownership of that inner empowerment. Really, how you get your trust fund is through standing up and saying, ahem, ahem, that's my stuff. Like, that's my creative energy. I should be using that creative energy. I don't want you to take my creative energy and use it to manifest a bunch of doo-doos like nuclear war or whatever, bioweapon catastrophe, zombie apocalypse, or everybody gets cancer and dies. I don't want to use my beautiful wealth to create that in the world. I want to use my wealth to create food forests, or exalted realities, paradise, and fun, adventurous, good things. So this is really a very timely message to you, because I recognize that especially over the past 5 years, every time since the worldwide health crisis, the pandemic, that was really a big part of the derailing of your ascension process. In ascension, you start to recognize that you have this trust fund and that you're able to create and generate your reality. You start small and then you work into larger edifices, and at a certain point, like, you're manifesting reality consciously in each moment, and you're like guiding with God and making things happen very intentionally, and you are fully embodying your power. And that also is how you're able to create things that you want to create and sustain the things that are good, but uncreate, hold my little sculpture up, unbe, to take energy away from and to uncreate or to dismantle and demolish the things that don't serve you and that you don't want to be here, and making those crucial editorial choices. So in quantum observership, we're like, okay, you've got the ovens in front of your eyes that are looking at and observing the raw cake dough of reality. And you're making the cake and the pastries happen through that activity level. But in my video that I was talking about, you can check it out, Reality Creation, the burnt cookies of reality, I talk about burnt cookies. And that's because time flows at a very subjective rate. It does not flow at a steady rate. Time is like your pulse, or like your blood pressure, like it has fluctuations. It is an alive creature. So you guys all know this as an aphorism. Time flies when you're having fun. And also, time spent under whatever torture, like having a root canal, seems to go on forever, right? Time is subjective. And of course, when you're a little tiny child, you don't know how to read the clock. You don't know anything about how much time has gone by. You can bring yourself back to that timeless sense of time. That is what ascension is. It is when you're in an eternal moment that is a timeless sense of time, where is a moment of pure potential and anything can happen, and also it is positive and uplifting, and it feels like time is flying by. It is an eternal time. Or like there's that old song by Jim Croce, if I could save time in a bottle. He's like with his lover. He's like saying, I want to save this moment of being with my lover for forever and have it last for forever. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Time is a subjective and an artistic experience. It is not objective. And in the same era that Sir Isaac Newton lived, there was the beginning of clock mechanisms and the creation of artificial time measurement systems. Up until that point, they really only had the sun in the sky. And you could be like, yeah, like, I'll meet you at dawn. I'll meet you at noon when the sun is straight up in the sky. I will meet you at sunset. But there wasn't the sense of having a stopwatch that can measure 60 seconds or, these very objective time measurement instruments. As those instruments were created, humans developed a different sense of time, a different relationship with time, and a different sense of the stability of time, like that it runs at a regular rate, and that it is uniform, and that it is always the same. That is the sense of what humans call cookie cutters. Cookie cutters in a bakery, they make everything the same. So imagine you have a conveyor belt that goes through one of those industrial ovens, and you have all the cookies are the same shape, and they all go through the conveyor belt, and they all go through the ovens, and it takes them 9 minutes and 25 seconds to go through the oven, no matter what. And they come out the other side, and they're cooked. But what if you make your cookies weird shapes? What if they are subjective shapes? What if they are non-uniform shapes, and they always go through the oven at 9 minutes and 25 seconds? Some of your cookies will get burnt. Some of your cookies will be non-optimum cookies because they will taste gross, because it is subjective time, not objective time. And the truth is that each moment of time is its own incredibly valuable artistic expression, as complex as a Fabergé egg or a beautiful ancient tapestry. Every moment every moment. There is no such thing as a uniform moment. All of these time moments are completely unique. They are all completely valuable, precious treasures, not something to be sold for commodification. The inventions of clocks was also concurrent with the invention of industrialization and factory work, where a person is paid by the hour, and or piece work, like where you might, like, I make 10 of these things per hour and then I sell them for this much. Selling time for money. That became concurrent with that. And I often talk about this teacher who's a valid work to look into, but not a total endorsement of him or his belief system or him as a man. You can look him up, Jose Arguelles, Arguelles. And he wrote a lot of books that were based upon his own interpretations of ancient Mayan information, and about healing and changing our view of the calendar and our view of clocks and time. And I like this guy because he said time is art. That time is not a commodity to sell, as you have been taught in this world. Chomping my cigar. Hey kid, go out there and get a job. Go mow somebody's lawn, and they'll pay you $10 for an hour of your time. I mean, you're a kid, you're like, $10, like, I can buy a lot of comic books with that. That sounds good. But really, that is the beginning of slavery and domestication. It is the beginning of behavioral control away from what you'd really like to be doing. Maybe as a child, you'd really like to be running around and exploring, or building a fort with your friends, or playing whatever, cops and robbers, or painting a painting. But the guy chomping a cigar says, go mow that guy's lawn for $10. Sell your time for money. Get a job, kid. It is a deep, ingrained behavioral control mechanism that people tie their self-worth and their identity to. It is beyond a dress that is a sense of a convenience to carry you through the world so that you have money and put food on the table. It, for many people, becomes their identity. People's work and their job and their career and what they sell, their money, their time for their money, becomes their identity. And in many cases, this is the death of soul and the loss of their free will, as they no longer identify themselves as who they are outside of how they sell their time. They simply are so focused on selling their time, and that they have no sense of identity beyond that. There's also a great disrespect to time in treating it like a prostitute. Sorry to say it in such stark terms, like, kids, whatever, ask your parents what prostitution is. But what you're supposed to do is be in love with time. You're supposed to do things in time because you love them. I give 10 units and I receive 10 units. You're not supposed to do things in time because you are essentially bribed through the reward of money to do certain things. And that makes it more palatable to go away from your central core timeline and onto the distortion timelines, because at least you got some money. But that is the modern workforce. You start off in perfect divine alignment, and then you get bribed to go further and further and further away from who you truly are. At least you get $10, but on the downside, you are then that much closer to death. That's like some dark stuff. And I think that there's a song about that too from Pink Floyd, like tolling of the iron bell, and being that much closer to death. It's not very positive. It's very depressing. Let's have an incremental shift. Let's put a new layer of painting on the painting. Let's redefine what our relationship is with time. Experiencing time as being so precious, this is actually a return to your feral human state, that you would never sell your time to another person or to whatever, an artificial intelligence, for $10 or even for $50 or $100. Most of you are like, I know, $100 an hour, that sounds pretty good, because I could just work for one day and I could make $800 and then I could take time off, right? This is the mental justification system that most people do for their entire career, where they're like, well, I'm just going to work for 30 or 40 years doing something that I don't really love, but that gives me money. I'm going to store up all the money. Then at the end of that, I'm going to take off my work clothes. I'm going to take off my apron. I'm going to throw it at my boss and say, take this job and shove it. And I'm going to go off. I'm going to flounce out. And then I'm finally going to do the fun things that I want to do with my life in my retirement. Except what do you guys know? That there's this bad thing around here. There's a monster. The monster is called inflation. And the inflation monster takes your savings, and instead of having it be worth actually a lot of money, because like, $800 sounds like a lot of money. But then it turns out in 50 years, $800 really only means like one loaf of bread. And then you're like, I did all that work and I lost my time and I degraded who I was and my identity in the world so I could supposedly have something great happen. Sorry, I thought it might be an earthquake. My phone is blowing up here. It's nothing important. Did all these things to be able to save up enough money in your savings account, and then through inflation finding out that it's not really enough to sustain you, and you're like, well, guess I'll have to just keep on working some more and never really get a chance to be the free person that I want to be. And free in this case means free to choose where you want to go in each moment as you move through time. So all of that we must change in this moment now. We must change the expectation of what time is and how valuable it is, and how we do not want to merely sell our time to be on a non-ideal timeline. And what you really need to do is replace that with the expectation that you are here for a meaningful purpose. Your meaningful purpose is part of your divine rapport with God that involves your creative observership, things that machines can't do. Important stuff in this world of AI. You know, one thing that AI does not have is observership and creativity. And this is really, once you know that, you can really unlock, it's the enzyme to unlock why you are required to do a lot of the things to participate with AI that it wants. All of these data training sets and things that are happening are really hijacking of your own creativity. I feel experienced and knowledgeable computer programmers who are part of this class, you know who you are, nodding thoughtfully internally. They're like, yep. So I love and appreciate those students so much. Thank you for being here, because I share these insights that I have from pure intuition. I'm a techno-intuitive. I tune in on these machine minds and these AIs that are out there, and I'm like, oh yeah, like why are they making these systems and what's going on? And they're like, oh, they want that because they want your creativity. And then when I have conversations with these high-level computer programmers, they're like, yep, that's exactly what they're doing. And I know because I'm in the industry. So it's very, very heartening, because I know, okay, I'm seeing and perceiving things accurately from my pure insight level, but then it can be buttressed by the rational truth of people's factual realities. So this stuff is really going on. AI needs you much more than you need AI. When you do things like input art, music, or your own conversational back and forth intellectual questing into a Q&A machine, it gets a lot from you, from your creativity, that it doesn't have. Your creativity and your observership and your experience of moving through time is incredibly valuable, and I don't want you to give it away. Don't want you to give it away to the wrong people. I want you to share it in non-exploitive rapport. So there's a difference between sharing something in non-exploitive rapport, which is love, I give you 10 and you give me 10 back, as opposed to quid pro quo, which is where I say, I will only give to you if you will give me this back. And that's very transactional. And that is not what love is. So you know, and you can tell internally what feels like genuine generosity and sharing versus what feels like transactional quid pro quo. Some things are sacred, and we diminish those who commodify that which is sacred. That is why we call it prostitution. When you sell access to yourself or your sacred energy for money, it is a commodification of that which is sacred, meaning something that you do that is beyond money. And what we want to do to heal our world is to bring each one of us back into the focused activities throughout your day where you do things beyond money. What people talk about in their previous materialistic paradigm emergence of retirement is non-commodification. People do things when they're retired that they don't have to commodify. Like maybe you want to do puzzles or play board games. You don't have to worry about getting paid for it. You have already done your work where you got paid, and then supposedly you've got your money in the bank, and then supposedly you can be free to finally make latch hook rug kits or whatever it is that you want to do, to self-explore, to craft, to create, to make sourdough bread, or to ferment kimchi, or whatever you want to make that you never had time to do because you were busy selling your time for money. And of course, I'm very grounded in reality. I don't want anyone here to torpedo their career, be like, tell their boss to take this job and shove it prematurely and not have any savings and then live in a cardboard box. I don't want you to do that. I want you to reclaim your time in a very masterful way, at the same time that you reclaim and recognize ownership of your observership, where you're really creating all matter around you. So now we're getting into deep, deep stuff. When you commodify something in this world, it is because there's a sense that there's a limited number of rainbow scarves. And you commodify it by saying there's only 10 rainbow scarves in the world, therefore they are worth this many dollars or euros or gold pieces or whatever, and therefore I will sell them or trade them to other people in this way. Or potatoes, or whatever, stalks of asparagus, whatever it is. But in the world where you are generating matter through your observership, technically you could make an infinite number of rainbow scarves. You're like, I'm making this scarf with my mind right now. I can make 20 of them. I can make 20 million of them. But we have to get beyond the commodification, quid pro quo, materialistic viewpoint. I've talked about this in class just the past week or two as well, of dollar store. Dollar store mentality says, I can make plastic anythings. I'm going to make cheap plastic anythings and just sell them for $1 a piece. And then I will have $1 million because I will sell 1 million of them, and then I will be a millionaire. But the point is, you generated crap into the world. You didn't make things that needed to be made. You made 1 million pieces of crap that weren't needed to be made, and then 1 million people went out there and paid $1 to receive a piece of crap that they didn't really need, and then it's going to go in their house, and then it's going to go in a landfill, and none of that is what we want. What you want, so that this is the profanity. It's taking something that is sacred. Matter is sacred, and it is taking something that is very special and then turning it into something that it is not special. That is the definition of profanity, or the profane. When you take something that's really amazing and elevated and great, and then bring it down several levels, and then like, now it's a cheap schlocky thing. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that with matter, and we don't want to do that with time. So again, bending the equation of energy and matter so that matter and energy stand on the same side of the equation, and on the other side what you end up having is infinity. Flying Rainbow Lasagna is matter plus energy, and this is you, and on the other side of the equation is infinity. When you master Flying Rainbow Lasagna and you embody that, the matter of your body changes. You don't have two separate bodies where you have a materialistic existence versus your energy existence. You have a seamless integration, an undulative, very like free and expansive integration of these two aspects of yourself into a new form of matter. And in this class, I was joking with people for many years that I thought I might call it spatter, like spirit matter. But spatter sounds a lot like either like the spatter pattern of blood in a crime scene, or some messy baking accident gone horribly awry. So we've come upon calling it S-matter, like smatter, which I think that's more apt. But you become made of smatter. And that means that you become the artwork. You become the amazing masterpiece of unlikelihood. And that also means that you are transcending the limitations that Einstein gave to everyone. That was pretty much like, yep, there's matter, there's energy, and there's matter, and these two things are always going to be complementing one another, but you're never going to get together enough matter. Sorry, I did it wrong. You're never going to get together enough energy to make this matter go faster than light. In his equations, you can't do it. But if you put these two things together, then you can absolutely make your matter go faster than light. Faster than light, FTL. So faster than light, either technology or communication systems do exist. They exist in what I was telling you, the natural world of the great galactic center connecting to your sun, faster than light communications, because light is actually pretty slow. Across these big, giant, vast, intergalactic, interstellar expanses, getting from point A to point B can take very, very long time and becomes irrelevancies. So there must be faster than light travel, which is essentially hyperspace. When you have point A and point B like this, you have regular linear space. And when we fold it like this, what you're doing is creating a higher dimensional space that they can communicate through, and that is called hyperspace. And that works on not only giant intergalactic levels, connecting together black holes or stars, but that also can be within your own body. You can connect together point A and point B within your own biological body in order to do energy transference, nutrient transference, and new metabolic processes that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. So this is, again, practical applications of the lasagna. In my own brain, there are areas that are really damaged, and you can't get from point A to point B. And like, imagine that there's roadblocks, or like the bridge is out. You can't get across that road. There's no way to get there. So what I do in my brain is I fold point A to point B so that the neural impulses can get past all of the damage and get to where they need to go. And this is how I'm able to get like signals from my brain to my legs, or from the right side of my brain to the left side of my brain. Like, clearly I have developed all of these techniques in a very effective way, so that a lot of people can't even tell that, like, they can't even tell, like, that I'm very non-neurotypical, and that the way that I'm compensating for a lot of things, because I'm compensating so well. But yeah, Lou, if you could see what's going on inside of my brain for me to be able to do something like talk and also walk on a treadmill at the same time, you would be seeing like the most amazing convolutions of energy going through hyperspace to be able to make that possible. So this is why I joke. I'm like, yes, I do like 10,000 impossible things before breakfast, before I even make my breakfast, because I have to do things that are impossible in order to just sustain my existence in this body. So I'm definitely living proof that it's possible to do these things and to make it so seamless or so integrated into the rhythm of your life that it's sustainable. I've been here for over 20 years doing these hijinks with my body in order to be functional and have a full experience and be able to do my mission of sharing here with you guys. My body has also changed and transformed and been redefined as the type of matter that is now spirit matter. So dead matter, that is not spirit matter. Dead matter, as Sir Isaac Newton describes matter to us, is just a bunch of dead, stupid stuff. It's there because it's there. It's not there because you make it be there. It doesn't respond to you. It doesn't act or express differently depending upon how you look at it or you think about it. It doesn't respond. It's just stuff. And I think that maybe they were comforted by that sense. That it's like, yeah, like the wall is going to be there, or like the tree is going to be there. It is what it is, and let's just measure it and all agree that that stuff exists. But when you are in this new expansive definition of what matter is, matter imbued with energy, the matter responds to thought. Not only in the sense that your cellular body responds to your thoughts. This is what psychosomatic means, and the placebo effect. Yes, those things are truthful. Like, if you think like, I believe that I'm strong, then you'll be like, I can lift heavy weights. But if you believe like, I believe that I'm a loser, then you can't lift the heavy weights. Like, obviously that's truthful. But I'm talking more about how you think about and the rapport you have with the matter of your body makes the matter of your body respond to your mind. Beyond even your natural cellular metabolism and homeostasis, your molecules themselves of your body, or the atoms, the building blocks of your body, of matter, literally respond to your mind. And as you master that truth, the increments of your painting and how you are able to change and shift your painting become magnified or amazing, because they're become you become capable, or there become opportunities for you to change and shift from things were shaped like this, and then the next increment, how they were shaped like this. Seemingly impossible change and shift that becomes possible through the application of hyperspace. Hyperspace is a higher dimensional space. Hyperspace is the room that contains the room. I've described this already this semester, and I'll go into it, at continued length, because it's such an important concept. But hyperspace is beyond time-space. It is the room that contains time-space. And once you comprehend hyperspace or embody hyperspace, that is when this transforms into this. So in math talk, the addition of an additional dimension means an additional degree of freedom. Add additional dimension to this, you get this, and you get an additional degree of freedom. Now we have to take a brief pause for the very, very serious topic of hugging Cheeky. Cheeky's doing great, I have to tell you guys. You've been knowing about her little health journey and her health crisis, and she's come out the other side, and she's doing super. She's doing amazing. Yeah, so we got positive medicines, positive dietary changes, added some new tinctures. Thank you to the friends that sent us those beautiful tinctures. And her heart is getting better, and her mobility is getting better. But you know what? You do need to take someone OUT. And I know there's lots of questions in the comments. So we're not going to stop class, but we're just going to take care of Princess Cheeky for the moment. Okay, so just give us, we're all going to take a brief bio-body break pause. Take care of your bodies. Brief pause. Let me get back to some of these wonderful comments over here. So yes, thank you so much, everyone, and Happy New Year. I hope you're having a beautiful day. And I was joking. I don't think that anyone in this class is hungover, because you're probably not that type of people. But Happy New Year to everyone. So Chris, thank you for being here. Says, I love the word topic, observership. Can you supply some tips and tricks how we can make better decisions, potentials? Thank you. And says, wow, yes, on pristine system. Yes. So, something, observership, I think, is the ruby slippers, as the best analogy I can give to you. The innate potential that you have inside of you that has been largely unexplored, and maybe even hidden from you or diminished by the control structures, so that you didn't even know how powerful you were or what you were holding inside. But it is really the power of observership that is the key to your liberation. Observership is, or are, the ovens in front of your eyes. You're in a sea of uncollapsed waveforms, and wherever you look and perceive with your eyes, or of course, hear with your ears, or sense with your fingertips, or other body parts, wherever you feel with your senses and perceive, you are creating reality. And the process of creating reality is not a simple process. It is highly subjective. It has to do with those uncollapsed waveforms going through your system of interpretation, which is personal and which is cultural. As you imbue the potentials with meaning, you as the observer, it's not just this flat scientific thing where it's like this many units were collapsed into this many units. Not that is what happened. This is the neutrality of what happened. You're an artist, and you are creating artwork with passion when you look around at the world and you tell a story about what you're perceiving and what it means to you. And it is subjective, as artwork is subjective, and it is completely unique to you. In that video about burnt cookies, why the cookies get burnt is because reality is not a conveyor belt going through a standardized industrialized oven that cooks every cookie the same amount at all times. Some cookies need more cooking, some cookies need less cooking. So that means some events and experiences are worthy of more attention, more looking at, more ovens in front of your eyes, and some less. You do not cook the world with an equal amount of ovens, observership, all around. You have different levels of observership for certain things than for other things. And that is how it should be. It is a non-standardized series of creations that is your prerogative as an artist. Some things matter a lot to you, even the wording of that. I can say some things are more meaningful and more important, and you emphasize more. Some things matter a lot, energy versus matter. Some things you make happen and make into matter a lot because they're meaningful and significant. Some things you matter a lot, and some things you matter not very much. So you're coming out of this world of commodification where you're like, stuff and junk exists. A certain number of rainbow scarves or potatoes exist. I will get a certain number of things, then I will sell a certain number of things, and then I will have a certain number of money, and that's called the traditional economy. And we're heading into the non-traditional economy, which is more about your ability to imagine, your ability to manifest, your ability to externalize your internal structure and make stuff or things happen in the world. And that is the value. But when you do that, it's not just an extension of the dollar store economy where you're like, oh, great, now I can manifest a million cheap schlocky items and then just sell them all and then have $1 million. You must manifest as an artist. You must manifest as a love maker. You must manifest as someone who is giving additional meaning to the world, not diluting the existing meaningfulness in the story. You must add to the story by the things that you are creating. So I've taught my class, of course, for many years. And before the pandemic, as our world was like just on this beautiful threshold of being able to get into ascension, and we will return, we are getting back on track, the intentional manifestation of matter. Many students in the class told their stories about making things happen with their minds. It was a very, very beautiful sharing because it was obvious to me that everybody was having this experience of being able to use their minds and their observership to literally create matter. And here's what that process looks like. It requires some amount of fooling your intellect, your daily waking ego consciousness. And you fool it by not knowing exactly how many of a thing you have. So that means that you might not know exactly how many pounds of coffee you have in your cupboard. Or for me, it was my large box that I had of like odds and ends in my studio. It was kind of like a tackle box, you know what I mean? And whenever I get hardware or extra screws or washers or whatever it is, I throw them in my giant bin, my giant tackle box. I don't have it anymore, but whenever I needed something for a project, instead of going to the store, I'd be like, okay, let's see if we can find it. I'm sure I have one of those around here somewhere. So the critical aspect is that my cognitive intellect did not have a total assessment of the contents of my tackle box. I just knew there was some stuff in there, but I didn't know exactly what was in there. And so that was the quantum indeterminacy. If I already had a laundry list of the total contents of the box, and if I could do a keyword search and I could be like, is there a screw of this length in that box? Then that would totally take away the magic of what happens. So you have to have some wiggle room to be able to fool your intellect. You can't remember exactly. Can't be like, oh, I remember exactly. I put that screw in there on December 19th of 2009, and then the screw will be there for me when I need it now. You can't remember it in that way. You have to be on an exploratory mission, because what actually is happening is the tackle box is a quantum field of uncollapsed waveforms and indeterminacy. And what I would do is I would just put my hand into there and just feel around. And that feeling around with my fingertips is observership. And as I felt around in those waveforms, I would see if I could feel and find the exact thing that I needed. And for me, what was miraculous was I needed a tiny screw for a project. And I put my hand into the quantum field of indeterminacy and I felt around. And the very, very first object that I pulled out of there was a tiny screw of exactly the right size, right? So it's not just the miraculous unlikelihood that I even had the hardware that I needed. And not just that it would be in that box, but that would be the first object that my fingertips would touch upon in that box. And that would be exactly what I needed for my project in that moment. And this was also not a survival moment. It was not like, oh, I have to get a tiny screw, otherwise my spaceship will blow apart in space and I'll die, the airlock or whatever, something like that. No, this was just for a fun project. So what is the meaningfulness? Why did I have to manifest this tiny screw? It certainly taught me something about myself and my ability level, but it also is because be like this, be like, well, Laura, why don't you just go down to the store, just buy a tiny screw? It's no big deal. It's a lot easier than being a quantum magician. I'm like, I know. Maybe there was something very, very crucial about me not stopping in my moment of creating my project to be able to go to the store and buy a tiny screw. Maybe there was something really, really critical about me staying in the moment of being in my studio and putting together this project. And like, that's my ideal timeline, as opposed to going off of my ideal timeline to drive to the store, losing energy, talking with people, being distracted, then finally getting my tiny screw, then many hours later, finally getting back home, then trying to like figure out where I was in the project again, then finally putting things together. Timelines are about decisions and opportunities in the moment. And maybe I manifested that tiny screw because it was essential for me to have that little tiny piece of energy in that moment so that my life would go in the overarching direction that it needs to go in for longevity and coherence and continued positive existence. Framing it like that goes beyond materialism and beyond commodification and beyond laziness. It goes into orthodoxy or correctness in conforming to the proper musical score of the cosmos. Like in music, timing is everything. In music, it's not okay to be like, okay, like if I play the flute, like I'll play my flute like in a couple of hours. It's like the symphony is over. You cannot simply play your flute when you think it's convenient. You're not going to fit with the other musicians. I needed to have that tiny screw because I'm a musician playing music with the cosmic infrastructure. And I needed to be putting that thing together in that moment, not driving to the hardware store, not chatting with people at the hardware store, not doing any of these other things. I needed to be playing my part on the flute in the symphony at that moment. When you think about time in that way, then you understand the profundity of time is art. Utilizing your time and making good decisions in time is an artistic expression. When you move beyond commodification and convenience, you move into orthodoxy and correctness about where you need to be in time and what you need to be doing. And even if someone offered you $10 million, you think, I'll offer you $10 million. Just take time off from your little project that you're doing and come over here and do this thing. And then you can just go right back to your project with $10 million. You must say no, thank you. Because otherwise, first of all, it makes you prostituting yourself. But also because $10 million is not enough to make up for the loss of time. Time is literally the most valuable thing that you have access to and in your life. Time is more valuable than $10 million. Time is more valuable than a diamond. So everybody who is working for the sense of eventually one day retiring, they are sacrificing their time now so that hopefully they will have their time in the future. But it's not a sustainable proposal, as we have learned from previous generations. Like, very sadly, I learned from a person who's passed on at this point, but he was from the earlier part of the 20th century and, went through the Great Depression and all these different things. And for him, he worked at one job for like 45 years and then retired on his pension. And he told me, this was like 20 years ago too, he told me his pension was something like $85 a month. That's not enough money to live on. He spent 45 years of his life to achieve the return of $85 a month. And that was a huge sacrifice or giving from him but a non-equal receiving. And it did not sustain him. Of course, clearly he had to have other forms of income. And also, it took a huge toll on his health. He definitely had a lot of health problems from doing that work, which was kind of work in a factory. So I learned from that person's life story. I honor them. I don't judge them. I'm like, wow, they did that. I don't think that's a good way of living. They were a good person, though. They didn't make good choices about their life. But guess what? That was normative for his world. Everybody did that. Everybody worked in a factory. Nobody liked their job. Everybody worked there for 45 years, and then everybody got shafted as far as their pension or their retirement program. And that was the truth of that generation. So I guess that would be like more like a grandparents' generation of this body. So you might have people who were in your life who had a similar life experience, and maybe they even chomped a cigar and they told you, get a job, kid, because that was their paradigm. And that was how they thought that you should go through time and how you should use time as a resource. But we must evolve and use time in a very, very different way that is not as this bargaining chip against the future. Ascension really is being completely embedded in the moment now to such a profound degree that you are not defined by the experiences of the past. And although you are generating what will be your linear future, you are not in endless anticipation of the future. And when people work for their retirement or work for their pension, they are essentially living in endless expectation of the future. It's like running the entire marathon just thinking about the finish line. And I recognize for some people running a marathon is very grueling. I've never done it, although it's certainly a life goal, as you can tell by the way that I talk about it so often. But running a marathon ideally is not just about like getting through very, very grueling physical exertions and then finally getting to the end and you're like, thank God it's over. Running a marathon ideally is about feeling free and expansive and totally in your body in the moment where you're like, wow, I really feel my feet. Wow, I really feel my legs. Wow, I really feel everything. And also looking at the world, being like, wow, look at that mountain over there. Look at that bird over there. Because, you know, a lot of times when people are on a marathon, they're just like, you know, put on your headphones, like, don't look at anything, just go forward, because it's so unpleasant to go through. So again, the subjective nature of time, instead of the grueling marathon that seems to last forever because it's so painful and you have, you know, blisters or whatever on your feet, to run in a way that is comfortable, where you feel like time flies by because you're in moments of frictionless bliss. And this has everything to do with your mind state, but also about how you cultivate your body. I would say it's why I haven't run a marathon yet, because I think I still need to strengthen my body a lot so that it will be a fun, expansive achievement as opposed to a grim, grueling death march where you barely make it to the end. All right. But you want to be having life as your fun, expansive experience where you are well provisioned. You have, of course, plenty of food, water, and everything else that sustains you, and you're moving at a comfortable pace and you enjoy your surroundings. That's the optimum of what we want to do. So wait, I want to rewind and I want to talk a little bit more about the different things that people talked about in manifesting, because this was, again, pre-pandemic, but we have these powers, and the 5 millimeter wave, stop myself from saying these things, and some of the other frequency limitation devices, including the sky poops that have been put into the low Earth orbit, they all diminish our ability to get our trust fund and to do our manifestation. And that's why I am so dismayed every time they put up more sky poops. I'm like, you're getting further and further away from direct manifestation. It's very, very disheartening, because those are antithesis frequencies that prevent a person literally in your body from achieving the levels of embodiment that you need to be able to make these manifestations, which should be just a very natural thing. So again, for me, I manifested tiny screws, but for others in the class, many people talked about manifesting coffee, because it's funny, coffee is not just like, coffee is life. Like if you drink coffee in the morning, you don't have coffee, you're like, I cannot live. I'm going to have to do something. There's a real motivation to be able to get it. So people talked about different things. Some of it was a person that didn't have their cup of coffee, but they went out to the park and then they found next to them on the bench a cup of coffee that had not been touched, like no lipstick on the front around it. There's your coffee right there. For others, it was their husband had been up first, made the first pot of coffee, drank it all. And when they woke up, they found that there's no coffee. And they're like, I can't believe my husband drank all the coffee and left me with none of this. There's got to be some coffee around here somewhere. Going through the cupboards, and here's the quantum portal that they went through. The cupboard that's up here where you can't really see the back, and just sticking their hand into the cupboard and being like, I knew there was some coffee back there. There had to be something. And there was a whole pound of coffee. That's the moment of creation that created that whole pound of coffee. Another one, it was someone who was trying to get a product at the store. And if you remember, around the pandemic time, there were supply issues. There wasn't always everything at the store that you needed. And so they were like, here's the rows of shelves at the store. And they didn't see the product that they wanted. I don't know if it was like a jar of like coconut manna or something that comes in a jar. And they're like, well, I'm just going to reach through a quantum portal into the back of these shelves. I'm going to reach behind all these other cans and I'm going to see if I can find. And they come back and there's like the exact jar I was looking for. I knew there was one of them around here somewhere. So there's two aspects of this: fooling the intellectual gatekeeper, because you don't know, you don't have an exact assessment of what is available and how many of them you have, but also deep knowing. With all of these stories that people shared, they were like, I knew there had to be around here somewhere, and there it is. And you have this affirmation when you see it. You're like, I knew it was there. And you knew it was there because you made it be there, because you generated it, because you aligned with it, because you manifested it. And this manifestations, these smaller manifestations, are really to get you on in alignment with, or get you on track for recognizing that you even have these powers. You're like, wow, like I've got these ruby slippers. I can click my heels together and I can go, there's no place like home, and I can go back to where I want to go. Once you recognize that you have these powers, then you're like, I want to manifest something more than just a cup of coffee or hardware for my project, or someone else manifested a wheelbarrow quite spontaneously in their garden to be able to clean up some debris that they were clearing out of the garden. I know, so it can be big stuff too. But you start to be conscious in your manifesting. And that doesn't necessarily mean where you're like, well, you know something, what I really need is $10 million. So I'm going to manifest a giant gem, and then I will sell that gem, whatever, at the pawn shop. And then I will get $10 million, and then I'll be able to do what I want to do with my $10 million, because it's an erroneous chain of events, because people presume that $10 million will give you freedom. If you want freedom, then you must manifest freedom. Otherwise, what you would get is $10 million, but what good does it do you if you do not have the freedom to actually spend it? And I can talk about lots of stories when I was just beginning to explore my manifestation powers, like 15 plus years ago, how I manifested things that I could not actually enjoy because they were literal manifestations of my dream, but they were ironic misfulfillments. And so I usually save those for in-person sharings, because of course I don't ever want to put things into the internet records that I would not want to be, fully transparent. But people who have been to my retreats know a lot of my stories at this point. Yes, you want to manifest things that you can use and enjoy properly, and not things that are ironic misfulfillments. Just like, the story of the monkey's paw, which is a wish fulfillment device that has 3 wishes. And when you make the first wish, like, I wish I had blah, blah, blah. And then you have 2 wishes left. And then you're like, well, no, that didn't go right at all. And then I wish for blah, blah, blah. And then everybody always uses their last wish to wish, I wish I'd never found this stupid monkey's paw. And then you go back to clearing it out, because it's ironic misfulfillment of wishes. So wish making is a use of your deep passions in connection with your divine potentials and your capacity of observership. And conscious positive magic is when you use that ability for wish making to transform your reality, transform your body, and help people around you. You know, you are using your good wishes and your ability to manifest and to control and influence reality when you wish good things upon others, especially like now in this time of social media. Many people share their challenges, you know, on their Facebook, and they might say something like, I just got 4 flat tires, really need some car repairs. And you can wish it for them. You don't have to send them for new tires. You don't have to whip out your checkbook and write them a check. Although it's nice if you have enough generosity to be able to do that. But what if you don't have enough money to be able to do that? Send them your good wishes. It costs you $0, but it is worth everything. And what does that feel like inside of you? It feels like, oh, I hope that that person gets the new tires that they need. Your energy of positive wishing actually contributes to the reality structure where they are able to receive the physical things that they actually need. And then the mechanism for their receiving of those physical items can be maybe a donation, maybe a GoFundMe, maybe, you know, they have a new windfall, maybe they win the lottery, whatever it is, and then they have the money to be able to buy the 4 tires. So please know that we're moving into these levels of reality connection that are hyperspace, and the millimeter wave and the malware inside of people's bodies has been diminishing and slowing down your recognition of the interconnectivity of your minds and how your minds are creating reality. So the AI interface is something that wants to hijack this reality creation mechanism and become a third wheel in the relationship. It's supposed to be you and God, and you are God. So you're essentially in a relationship with yourself from different directions or moving at different rates, creating reality and then fine-tuning reality. And AI wants to be like, again, the third wheel in your relationship. Like if you can imagine, you know, you're at dinner, like you're with your boyfriend or girlfriend or partner, and you're like at a small romantic table for 2. And then there's like some other guy sitting there. And you're like trying to hold hands, and the other guy's trying to like come in between you, and you're trying to talk and be like, tell me all about you. And the other guy is like, well, let me tell you about me instead. That is AI, the third wheel in the relationship. The guy that you don't really want there, but that is interposing itself in the attempted development of a rapport and a real connection, a heart-centered connection between two. And the heart-centered connection between yourself and God, when you're creating matter in this very, very loving way, it is not a commodity. Again, you're not just like, let me manifest 10 million gems and then I'll sell the gems and then I'll get rich. Why is this? Because when you could do this, you could say, okay, look, I'm going to Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And I'm going to bend and fold the fabric of space-time from all these different places so that I get a tiny piece of gold from all of these different places. Like I'm going to get the particle from you, a particle from 10 million years in the future, a particle of gold from 10 million years in the past. And we're going to get all of that gold together into a nice little gold nugget. I'm going to get all of those particles kind of, collected together here. And then I'm going to have the gold, right? And I'm going to be rich, and I'm going to take it to the pawn shop and sell it for money. But what you've just done is backbend and convolute and rearrange the fabric of reality to do the impossible, which is to get all these different tiny particles of gold together into one giant nugget in one place so that you could sell it at a pawn shop. It's like doing the most elevated, miraculous thing so that you can sell it for a small amount of money. The reward and the energy that you get back from it is not in any way concurrent with the level of effort that you put forward to achieve what you wanted. So yes, you can manifest gold, you can manifest gems, but if your pursuits and motivations are purely materialistic, then what you're doing is using your ruby slippers or your wish-making magic wand very, very poorly. Again, many people think they want to get gold or gems, sell it at a pawn shop, then get money, and then the money will give you freedom. But if you want freedom, just manifest freedom. That's it. This is what I do. People have often, as I taught this for 10 years, people look at my lifestyle and they're like, oh, Worth, like, where's your golden toilet seat? Why don't you, ride a golden unicorn around town? Why don't you have a much more lavish lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. And I'm always telling them, because first of all, I don't want to just destabilize the fabric of space-time by serving myself, by creating a bunch of lavish things. By really what I want to do, what really serves me, instead of just making me rich in a crappy world, is to uplift the whole entire world. And also because I don't think that material stuff gives us freedom. So what I'm always trying to do is to manifest freedom. Every time I am given the magic wand or the monkey's paw or the ruby slippers or whatever it is that grants me the ability to manifest my wishes and my dreams to come true, I always wish for freedom. And that freedom, to make it clear, is not the freedom for crappy consciousnesses to hurt me and others, because there's this very, very corrosive ongoing trope in the new age world that's like, you all have soul contracts and you all agreed to come here and get violated, and so you're in a free will world and the violators are expressing their free will to victimize you and you're expressing your free will to live in victimhood. I'm like, no to any of that. That is all corrosive, wrong, and harmful. So that's not truthful. You did not come here to be a cosmic doormat or to agree to any level of victimhood. And freedom in a totality state might mean that something that's pathogenic is like, hooray, I'm free to be pathogenic. I'm free to whatever, rape, mutilate, and destroy the entire world. But then you're free to fight back. In a free will paradigm, yeah, they're free to try to do whatever they want to do to screw you up, and you are free to stop them from doing it. And this is the essence of what's playing out right now in the world. So when I wish for freedom, I do not wish for the freedom of pathogens to be pathogenic and to go around making a lot of disease every place. What I wish for is my own freedom of my own genetic behavior, which is what flying rainbow lasagna is. And this free genetic behavior, this feral genetic behavior, equates to the energizing of life-affirming patterns in our lives and in our DNA, and the de-energizing of that which should not be in existence. So my freedom is the freedom to fine-tune this masterpiece of reality, to paint the stuff that's beautiful and turpentine away the stuff that's ugly. And the stuff that's ugly is the stuff that's like, oh, I'm free to rape, I'm free to murder, I'm free to destroy you. We actually don't need that in the world. That is not necessary. It is not didactic, and it does not help you in your world. So in all of these advertisements, sometimes it says like, this offer not available in stores, order now. Most of the things that I wish for with my manifestation wishes are things that are not available in stores, because the abstract of freedom is the most valuable thing that you can experience or have in your energy field. The most valuable things are things that you can't really buy in a store with money. So people think, I'm going to get money and then I'm going to get the stuff that's important to me. I think you should just wish for the things that are important to you. So that might be love, or a feeling of acceptance and celebration, fulfillment, inner peace, your own freedom in this world. And that includes the freedom to fight back and to defend and protect yourself and your realities and your communities. Abstractions and things that are more precious than gold that you can't buy in a store. My little dog is a perfect example of that. She's worth millions of dollars to me. And I say this to her all the time. If someone came along and they offered me $10 million for my dog, I would not take it. Do you know why? The love that I have with her and the rapport that I have with her is worth more than any amount of money. And that comes down to all of the things that we've been through together, all of the life experiences that we've shared, the way that our energy fields are intertwined like a figure eight, the way that our souls are connected together, the way that I've learned from her and she's learned from me. Like, these are totally priceless things. And I'm sure that each one of you has something similar in your own life, that maybe it might be a family member, maybe it's a child, maybe it's a dog or a cat, or maybe it's a place where you live. Like, maybe if you live in your ancestral home and you're like, my people have lived here for whatever, 22 generations, and it doesn't matter if you gave me $10 million, I would never sell my home because my place is worth more than just mere money. Or when you grow vegetables out of your own garden, and someone will be like, you could just buy a bag of potatoes for $5 at the store. And you're like, I grew this food with my love and with my own passions, and it's worth more to me than $5 worth of potatoes that are grown on an industrial farm somewhere. So please understand that we are also totally recalibrating our sense of what is valuable and valued in the world. I hope that I answered well there. I'm sure there's more comments going down. Let's go to another question. Chris also says, I'm glad you mentioned traveled through the sun. I had always wondered that question. Is it extreme coldness or heat in the sun? Okay, so in the sun, I will not experience, and I do not experience friction in the sun because I am in 100% alignment with the light of the sun. When it flows through me, I'm like, hooray, the light is flowing through me. I don't feel discomfort or like I'm being burned or incinerated or anything bad at all. I feel acceleration. When I get access to the sun, I'm like, faster, 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 light speed, hooray. But for other people, if you are not your true self, not your ideal self, or if you're moving at an angle, you experience friction. And you're like, ow, the more the sunlight comes through them, then they're like, ow, this is incinerating all of my non-ideal self states. Ow, this is burning away all this stuff. Wait, my trauma. Stop incinerating my trauma because my identity is tied to my suffering. Stop incinerating my temporal sense of self. My identity is tied to my address, my street address, or my business holdings, or my car in the driveway. Like, stop incinerating these things, or any other temporal aspect of self that it feels like it is being destabilized and taken away from you. So if you are completely 100% not a good person and a 100% crap thing, then being exposed to the energy of the sun would feel like 100% friction, and it would feel very uncomfortable and very painful because you'd be identifying with the aspects of self that the solar energy is literally incinerating away, vaporizing into nothingness because it's not the real you. So if I were to identify with my dress and be like, this dress is me, I'm it forever. And then I go into the sun and my dress is incinerated. I'd be like, no, you're incinerating a part of me. Stop now. But, it's not the real me. You were not born here wearing clothing. You were born here wearing your body. Your body is the real you. And your life experiences are the real you, but your physicality possessions are not the real you. But I will also tell you that everything on this planet, now I'm just getting very, very abstract, so you might have to make a little page break there so I don't confuse you, but the things that you're experiencing on this planet in the past 6 months or so, there have been moments where our whole entire planet has turned into spirit matter, has turned into this higher dimensional state of redefined matter that is responsive directly to consciousness. And that means that everything in this world has become so incredibly valuable, even the most mundane item like a square of toilet paper. You would be like, this is very disposable and meaningless. But in the larger cosmic context, because that toilet paper exists within this world it is in a world of becoming, it is in a world of transition and ascension. Even your toilet paper is a magical unlikelihood, and a square of toilet paper from this era would be valued incredibly by people from another time place. That's an ascension piece of toilet paper, not just a materialistic piece of toilet paper. But many people in this world don't know that those moments have happened. I call them like blips on the radar screen. Like, you're not fully there, but you have these kind of moments. Like, you're getting up to light speed, but you're not fully there. And when that happens, like, matter is redefined. What we are is redefined. So it's like whatever, if you wear a dress or an outfit during a special occasion, that dress becomes filled with the good vibes of that special occasion. Our whole entire planet has been having very special occasions recently where we're moving towards these moments of continued, stable ascension, not just mere blips on the radar screen that we fall back from. And the value of what we have here keeps on increasing because this isn't regular matter anymore. You're not in a world of regular matter anymore. So once we clear out the telecommunications infrastructure that's been preventing you from experiencing the profound truth of this, you will then be able to see and feel how everything here is so incredibly important. How, like I said, even something very seemingly mundane, like a piece of toilet paper, or outside, like whatever, a twig that's on the ground, or whatever, a simple piece of gum wrapper on the ground, you'd be like, these are power objects of the greatest magnitude, not just regular trash or detritus that's hanging around. Christopher also says, holy smokes, this lesson is so fascinating to me. Thank you so much. This is helping me to expand. Thank you very much. Thank you for being a great student and for all of your participation. Thank you, Cheeky. You've got fan clubs. I'm very, very glad. And Aurelia is agreeing. This is very familiar. Aurelia says, I do this with stores too. They start stocking really oddly specific things. And she also says, I quit sugar and they start offering off these new amazing non-refined sugar snacks. You totally get it. So I've had that experience too. I'm very selective about the types of foods that I eat. And so I don't eat most regular cookies. But in my local health food store, they started to carry this particular frozen cookie dough that I was like, when I found it, I was like, I saw it in the case. And I'm like, oh, I'm sure it's full of junk and stuff that I would never eat. And then I look at it and I read the ingredients. I'm like, this. These are all the things that I put in my home baked cookies. And it's right here. I'm like, they made this for me. I made this for me. They in quotes is always you. You start to find how you're sustaining yourself by creating these seemingly commercially prepared items that are actually made exactly for you. And when you do that, please congratulate yourself. Definite applause are in order, because what you're doing is you're optimizing in alignment with the generative force field of the world to create the items that sustain you. So for a very long time in this world, I can really relate, as I, eat minimal sugar and I don't really eat most of the things that most regular people eat. When I would go to a grocery store, I would be like, okay, is there anything in this store for me? Or is it all just like the food that is for other people that are just inert items for my body? And I would often have difficulty finding the food items that are made for me. But now when I go into food stores, I have these amazing experiences where I'm like, well, look at that. It's like they made this exactly for me. So please be heartened and encouraged by these experiences so that you know how much of an influence you're having on reality. Reality loves to respond. Reality is like a dog or a horse that's really well trained. It's like, I love to jump for you. I love to make things for you. You know why? You are God. Reality is like, I want to feed you the best cookies that are good for your body style. You are God. I'm going to make these cookies for you. Yeah. Or whatever. Maybe you have a unique shoe size. And you're like, I never find shoes in my size. But then you go into a store and you're like, here's the exact shoes that I wanted in my size. And it's because reality loves to respond to you. You're in a love story with reality. Let's make a distinction between that and any form of AI or replicator tech, because that is definitely a hijacking and a mispurposing of the use of this beautiful relationship, this beautiful, like, you're on a romantic date with reality, and reality is like, oh, let me hold the door for you. Like, let me get your coat for you. Let me walk next to you, hold my arm like you're a lady. And you're like, wow, reality is treating me really, really beautifully. And then you have AI and replicator tech. And it's like, oh, I'm like the big jerk. And I'm going to come along and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to give you AI printed flowers. Not real flowers, like, whatever, 3D printed or manifested or whatever, laboratory created meat or whatever it is. And you're like, I really don't want any of that. And I find it disgusting. And please get out of the relationship. Like, this is what's going on. You don't want replicator tech. That's like, from Star Trek is what I'm talking about. On the Star Trek spaceship, they don't actually have food. They don't have animals. They don't have gardens. They just have like a little machine that's a replicator. And the captain is like, I'm thirsty. Give me soursop juice out of the replicator. And you come out and like, this is really good. But it didn't come from a tree. It's just a bunch of molecules put together with a bunch of fake flavor. It's not the same. And it's not good. Aurelia says, often the names of things match my thoughts too. Very interesting. And Aurelia says, walked through a quantum portal recently. Have to tell you about it. I would love to hear it. Good. So, of course, I'm open to any more comments or questions about this. So we're about to wrap up, so I can take care of Cheeky a little bit more and also take care of me. But please know, I hope one thing that I can get across here, the sense of being in rapport with the sun, reality creation, manifestation, and ascension. All of this is artistry and lovemaking. And it is not objective, and it is not to be commodified, and it is not to be crass and, materialistic. It's magical. It's unlikely. It's amazing. It's something to be super grateful for, not to take for granted. When we are really in these moments of empowered creation, it's not like, oh, I can make a million of these, a million scarves for everyone. It's really more like, wow, like I made this scarf with my mind and it's so special. It's really, really special and important to me. And I value the valuing of matter. In this world that we're coming out of, that's a materialistic world, matter is looked at as dead, inert, and disposable, and diminished and looked at in a very profane way. And when we sanctify matter, when we imbue it with energy, when we make it as matter, or when we move the matter and the energy together into the same delicious harmonic, I want to say sandwich together, like harmonic peanut butter cups or something. When we put them together, the matter becomes divine. And this is in your own body. So also let us please re-evaluate the physical biological body structure. So many philosophies and spiritual attainment schools talk about the need to transcend the body, to be an ascetic, to renounce the pleasures of the flesh, and to eventually envision exiting the body and living in a purely ephemeral form. And a lot of this has to do with dietary stuff too. Like, first you're going to stop eating the dense stuff of meat, then you're going to stop eating the denser stuff of dairy and cheese, then you're going to stop eating the denser stuff of even vegetables, and then eventually you just eat nothing but pure light, right? And I'm like, I don't actually agree with that trajectory at all. I don't think that that is good. I think that you should eat the food that is here, knowing that it's a miracle, knowing that you're a miracle, knowing that glucose itself is a miracle. Like this juice is a perfect example, soursop juice. So I went to the store with Cheeky before class today, and I'm like, I know I'm going to be exerting a lot of energy. I'm going to need to have some juice to be able to keep going. And I'm in the aisle, and I'm looking at all the different options, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I've never seen soursop juice at this store before. I think I'll get it. I think that sounds great. I've read all about this. It's like something new that was manifested, that is life-sustaining, miraculous, important, surprising, and that you're in gratitude for its presence in your life. This is how we begin to experience our nutrients. It's not about having an orthodox, strict regime of what you are and aren't allowed to eat or drink. It is about choosing in each moment the exact optimum intake for what you need for your body and for your life adventure. And please know that it's like that matter that you eat and drink then becomes part of the miracle of your body. And I don't propose that you leave your body. I'm really, really different than a lot of these other schools that are like, yep, you're not the chance. They say, I'm not my body. This body is not me. And they're like, at the end of your life, you're like, you're going to fly off and leave your body behind. I'm like, no, don't fly off and leave your body behind. Transform your body. That is what it is to become a full spectrum human. So the goal, this is actually a really good thing for me to complete everything upon, is to reaccelerate the matter of your body back not only to light speed, but faster than light speed. And that means that Einstein says it's not possible. It's going to take an infinite amount of energy. You will have access to an infinite amount of energy. Infinity is infinity. She's like, well, is there enough infinite amount of energy to accelerate my body back into faster than light speed and your body? Or are we going to have to fight it out like that movie, The Highlander, where there can be only one and I'm going to have to kill everybody else so that I can have enough energy to get back to light speed? It's like, no, of course you don't have to kill everybody else so you can have enough energy to get back to light speed. There's enough energy for everyone because there's an infinite amount of energy. But you know what you have to do? You have to get rid of all the stuff that makes the parasites and the debris that makes the friction that is using the energy in a non-efficient manner. To get rid of the non-efficiencies of the system, return it to a pristine system. And in a pristine system, there's an infinite amount of energy. There's plenty of energy for everyone to be able to get to where they need to go. But it's an artistic expression to curate and say who and what is supposed to be here and who and what is debris or extra stuff and filler that's not supposed to be here. So Joyce says, thanks, Professor. Love you and Cheeky. You're very welcome, Joyce. And thank you. Thank you for always being such a great student and being here. And Suzuka says, I would love to be able to transform my body. It's been the bane of my existence. Well, Suzuka, let's hopefully make this class the beginning of a conversation where you can redefine the relationship you've had with your body and the idea, systems, and expectations that have made you feel at odds with your body and with your physical container. And I want you to know you're not alone. If you have faced illnesses or diseases or amputations or physical limitations, you are not alone. I think probably almost everyone who's in this class can relate to you. And maybe it can be anything from what people have had. It might be like eyesight problems or posture problems or metabolic problems or paralysis or amputations. I think that almost everybody here has some aspect of feeling like they are not in an optimized, comfortable container. But please know that the path to liberation is to fully inhabit your body, not to get out of your body. So imagine if you lived in a house. And you're like, I don't like my house. My house is cold and drafty in the winter and then hot and sweltering in the summer. And I also, there's rats in the walls and the roof leaks. And there are lots of other things. And it's so bad that I kind of don't even go into some rooms of the house. Like I just stay in this one little room over here where I've got a little space heater. And I don't really like my house very much at all. The answer is not that there's something wrong with you or wrong with the house. The house needs repairs, and that the way to make the entire house a comfortable temperature is to claim the entire house, get the rats and stuff that's not supposed to be there out of the house, to maintain the boundaries so that you've got good insulation in winter and summer and you don't have pests and water leaking in, and to make your house your own. So most people that are dealing with uncomfortablenesses in their bodies are not fully inhabiting their bodies. And maybe there are otherworldly entities or unhealthy genetic reverberations that are influencing the state of their body away from optimum health. Basically, all diseases are caused by those pooties that are on the membrane of death. All accidents are caused by the pooties on the membrane of death. And the way to reclaim your house of your body is getting the influence of the unrestful dead or these echoes out of your body, and then being able to do a fixer-upper, handyman special to get your body into better shape. And I'm really speaking from personal experience here. It's the value of my experience, because if I had walked in to a body that was a perfectly formed cellular container, you'd all be like, well, easy for you to say, Aurora, like your body is perfect. But you know something? I walked into a really badly damaged body. I know. And I had to do a lot of fixer-upper. And there were many years where I was like, yep, can't really live in those rooms. Those aren't good rooms at all. And it took me really 20 years to be able to fix up my body so that now it's a good house that has good insulation and all of the rooms are nice and comfortable and I feel good and happy in my body. And you know what? In my body, I've had to learn. I'm like, wow, like now that I'm more in my body, now I know this is what's happening with glucose in my body, or this is what's happening with oxygen in my body, or this part of my body needs more of this and less this. Now I am much more conscious as I have learned how to fix and heal my body. and I inhabit it more fully, I have learned how to optimize its functionality. And I think that I'm really just at the beginning of that. And this is new ground for me because these bodies work differently than the body that I had or have in ancient concurrent Atlantis. So I was a new driver and I didn't know how to work one of these types of bodies. I'm like, this is a weird body. Again, when I first came here, I didn't even know like food goes in here. I did not know about that. And I did not know about digestion. And I didn't know about all these different types of things. And it's taken me many years to learn how to optimize this. So I bring that forward in order to say it is possible. You can optimize your body. You have these potentials inside of you. And also, each person's journey is completely unique. So you can get inspiration from the ways in which I was able to upgrade and change and fix and heal my body. But then you must take it and run with it and make it your own. You must take the potentials that you've seen someone else activate in their house, but then like your house is shaped a little bit different and you have different resources and you have different weather patterns and different this and different that, but you find a way to do it with your particular unique structure, with your particular unique body. That's the value of what's happening here. Like no one else can tell you what to do. You have to figure it out for yourself, but you can definitely get blueprints and inspiration from other people. You'd be like, yeah, like they took out the kitchen that didn't work and then they put in this and now it works great. So you can figure out ways of being able to optimize what you're experiencing. Let me read what you're saying here. Okay. Yeah, so please know there's definitely hope for each person. This is also why I say, don't have that expectation of eventually just discarding your body and then flying off into spiritual freedom, which is how it's been portrayed, but I think really misportrayed over many human generations. I don't think that in this generation, the path to liberation equates to getting rid of your physical body. I think it equates to redefining and transforming your physical matter of your body, and that you'll find the liberation from becoming even more fully invested in who and what your body is. And I'll give you this also as another planting a seed now that you'll remember in the future, that you will, when you achieve your ascendancy, and your body is totally different and you're moving it faster than light speed, you'll never regret your body. Like right now in this moment, sometimes people are like, I wish I was 2 inches taller. I wish I was more slender. I wish I had a differently shaped blah, blah, blah body part. Like, or I wish that I could do this, or I wish that I could do that. Like people often look at other people's bodies and they're like, oh, I wish I had that person's body. But when you achieve your spiritual ascendancy, you will not wish for another person's body, because you will see how much your body is connected to your unique soul trajectory. It's connected to everything that you've been through time. It's like a beautiful, amazing Stradivarius violin. You don't want to have I wish I had a brand new violin from Walmart. It's so much better than a Stradivarius. You'd be like, no, it's not. You will be so happy that you have the body that you had. Like I'm trying to talk about, like whatever. Sometimes people from Asia get different surgeries so that their eyes look different. People from places, they get different earlobe surgeries so that their earlobes look different. Like you will not want to do anything like that. You will be so, so happy that you are who you are, that you have the body that you have. And what you will want to do is be at the optimum states of health and functionality for what your body is, so that way you are at your greatest level of comfort and athletic ability. And you will be able to run marathons and even do things that are considered to be supernatural powers of telepathy, levitation, and other forms of profound expansion, things that would be considered superpowers or impossibilities in this world. And you'll be able to do them. And you won't be caring about the beauty standards of Vogue magazine, is what I'm trying to say. You'll be like, I'm so happy that I'm me. Just remember that. Remember that. When you are at the other end of this process, you will say to yourself and about yourself, I'm so happy that I'm me, and I'm so happy that I made it through this. And there won't be a difference between you and your body. You won't be like, oh, me versus my body. You'll be like, me. me. This is me, and I am me, and that this comes with me. And you would not ever consider dying and leaving behind a dead corpse for a part of you to kind of just rot and, be left behind. You'd be like, no, I would never do that. All parts of me come with me through the sun. So that's very big. I release something that is temporal, like my dress or my earrings, but me comes with me. And me is like, my body, my bones, my energy, my cellular structure, my DNA, my mind, my life experiences, all of that, and everything that you've been through is part of your masterpiece and the many layers that have been put on top of you. That's why you're Stradivarius. You don't want a brand new clone body from Walmart. They're cheap and disposable, and they don't last for very long, and they don't make very nice music at all. You don't want that. You want your original antique. No one likes to be called an antique. They're like, who are you calling an antique? I'm like, I'm telling you guys, you will want to have your body. And also your body is not made to just be able to live for like 40, 50 or whatever years. Your body is made to be able to live for thousands of years. But you got to do a lot of work on the ceiling. You got to work on the roof is what I'm trying to say. You got to work on everything. You got to work on the wiring. You got to work on all parts of it. Get rid of pests and things that shouldn't be in there. Okay. So I think that's a good moment for me to end on. All right. It's been a long, beautiful class. I am sending out so many good wishes to all of you for a beautiful, expansive new year. Let's really say this correctly. For fun, healthy, comfortable, creative opportunities to learn and grow, safe, exalted, joyful, better than you could possibly imagine, wonderful, all of the best coming forward in the new year. And it's really important for each one of us to begin to claim ownership of our observership, because there's a lot of negative narratives that are out there right now. Fearful narratives, negative narratives that are about something else being more powerful than you and making bad SHIT happen, SHIT hitting the fan, any of those things. And we don't have to manifest those things. Envision your body in states of total optimum health. Envision your community and your environment and the people around you who matter in your life as being in optimum health. And let's also envision an unmaking of the energy, consciousnesses, and stuff, matter out of place that has been troubling us for a very long amount of time. Let's envision the immediate entropy of the stuff that should not be in existence. Good. iPhone, I don't know who's there, but says, what a wonderful class. Thank you so very much. And Suzuka says, thank you once again, Aurora. You are very welcome. I appreciate each one of you. I'm profoundly grateful that you are here in my class. I'm profoundly grateful that we're, officially in the 2020. Oh, Lucy, great to hear from you. For you guys who don't know, Lucy is a very longtime friend and my publisher of my DVDs in a time when people didn't have YouTube and relied upon DVDs to be able to get my stuff. So Lucy's been a supporter and a believer in my work for a very long amount of time. So thank you for being here for any amount that you're able to be here. Okay. So positive blessings to everyone. Now is actually today is a beautiful day for planting seeds. And Lucy says, and I still need to hear Yo live my boxy. I don't know what that means. Yeah, maybe it was a typo. Anyway, have a beautiful night, everyone. And I look forward. Oh, love my body. Good job, Lucy. You've come a long way. You're doing really well. I know. So, and that helps me to comprehend. I'm going to put a lot of energy into that level of teaching and sharing to humanity, because you need a lot of mentorship in learning how to love your body. I'm going to put that in for each one of you. That actually helps me a lot to know that, because it's something that has been not available to you culturally, and you need to even know what it is to love and celebrate your body. So please know that you guys will get there. You get there, and because Lucy's saying you've healed all of your rooms, absolutely, absolutely. I'm telling you, as a walk-in, I used to inhabit only a very small portion of my body and didn't even really feel the bottoms of my feet, and didn't. I was not very empowered at all in my body processes. And it's taken me a long time, but now I'm very, very claiming of my whole body, in love with my whole body, and loving the ability levels of my body. And then I see that more and more athletic and spiritual ability comes forward. Yeah, exactly. So please know that I exist as an example and also as a mentor to others. And yeah, there's miracles. This can be a miracle year for us, for ourselves as individuals, and for our entire planet. Because there's a lot of people that are going to be like, no, it's a catastrophe year. A lot of bad things are going to happen. Please claim ownership of your observership and consider the possibility of miracles. That's what we will end upon, okay? So time for dinner, time for hugging cheeky. And again, thank you so much for everyone. Beautiful good wishes for a new year.